You know, when you climb the mountaintop, right? All my career was about being the guy that would tour with a big band or a big artist in stadiums worldwide. Well, I did that. I was able to finally accomplish that with Metallica and George. And I wasn't the boss on Metallica, but I technically was the boss on George. But then I had the realization of two things. I don't have a kid yet. I'm over 40. And if I don't get off the bus, I'll be 60 with no kid and probably no wife. So I had to make a decision. And it was the best decision I took because I also decided I have the chops to switch to movies. And it was amazing. It was the right call.
So thanks again for joining me today on the podcast. I appreciate it. So a couple things I wanted to mention before we get into this. Bob Schockrell from, High End Systems is where I'm always going to remember Bob from, but Bob went on from High End. He was one of the founders, one of the owners of High End. If you want to hear about his story, by the way, you can go to Geezers of Gear episode number 32, where myself and my then co-host had a great, probably 2-hour conversation with Bob. But sadly, Bob passed away the other day. And, again, Bob was one of the founders, one of the partners and owners at High End. They sold the company to Barco. He went on to work for Verilight and then ultimately for Roby. And he left Roby in 2019 due to an illness. At the time, he didn't say that. He said he was retiring to go run his ranch. But not that long after, I think sometime in 2020, he checked into a dementia hospital. And sadly, just a few days ago, he passed away from said disease. And so he will be missed. He's a great man and really, really super nice guy. And just another figure in our industry that did great things and will be missed. And, prior, I worked for him at High End. He was my boss basically at High End. And so I got to know him really, really well. But even prior to that, when I worked for one of his biggest competitors, Martin, and I was a thorn in his side, he was always a gentleman. He was always nice to me. We'd always talk at trade shows and whenever we saw each other at a show or something. And he was always kind. He was never a jerk just because I happened to be a competitor. And since that time, even when I've seen him when he was at Roby or anything, it was always, hey, Marcel. He'd run across the hallway to see me or from 3 booths down, and he'd be like running over to give me a hug or something. And just great guy, another wonderful person in our industry. It's becoming way too common that we're losing people, and we just lost another one. And so I'm getting ready for my trek north up to Canada. Every time people call me now, they always say, where are you? And because I'm basically a what do you call them? What do you call people who go back and forth from cold to warm? You call them snowbird. I'm a snowbird now. So, I've always had a place in Canada, but I've only gone there for a couple weeks here and there, maybe a couple weeks skiing in the winter, a couple weeks hiking or hanging out in the summer. Now I've just gone, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go up there for the whole summer? My company's remote. It doesn't matter where I am. So now I go in May or June, and I stay till September, October normally. And so I'm just getting ready for that. Probably about exactly a month from now, I'll be leaving at the end of May and going up to Canada. So future podcasts, you'll be seeing wood in the background instead of white in the background. That'll be from my house in Canada. And so I can't wait. Looking forward to that. Just trying to figure out all the logistics on that right now. And so speaking of Canada, today's guest, lighting legend Benoit Richard, returns for a long overdue follow-up to our original podcast, which was recorded just before this crazy little pandemic changed the world so much. And so in that previous episode, Benoit spent a lot of time talking about how his career evolved since 2020, shifting further into motion picture and television work while continuing to apply his concert touring experience behind the scenes. From massive Marvel blockbusters like Avengers and Iron Man to high-profile commercial shoots and reshoots, Benoit reflects on what's changed, what's remained the same, and what still excites him most about work. He also opens up about life after 50 in this business, and whether it's time for live touring crews to push for better wages, healthcare, and long-term support. With his trademark honesty and humility, Benoit shares practical insights on previs, his love for L8 software, and the enduring motto that's guided his decades-long journey in the lighting world. Early is on time is late. So please join me and welcome Benoit Richard.
So good to chat with you again.
It is. And happy birthday to you, mister.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, today is 50.
Yeah.
56. I'm not going to lie.
I don't even talk about mine because let's just say I'm 4 years older than you. So I don't like to talk about it. I don't even like to say the number because...
You made it to an exclusive club.
But you know what, though? Like when I was 20 or 30 or 40, 60 seemed like those people are old. Like they must be in wheelchairs and they don't do any, they don't go to rock concerts anymore. They listen to Lawrence Welk and stuff. They don't listen to, Dream Theater and Led Zeppelin and whatever.
That's right.
And by the way, I'm sure you know that Portnoy's back in Dream Theater, right?
Oh, and I'm so bummed because they were here in LA at the YouTube Theater a few months ago when I was working.
Oh, yeah. So you still try to go out and see them when
Oh, yes, I saw them if I remember correctly, it was the prior tour in 2019, and I was working at Paramount Studios, and they were playing at the Wiltern, and I somehow wrapped right on time.
Oh, perfect.
And I was on the phone with their tour manager saying, I'm coming.
Yeah.
I got a chance to see them. I hadn't seen them in 15 years. They were so surprised when I walked in.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah, I mean, they're obviously a band that I've followed since Images and Words, their first real album, I guess, because the one prior was a EP. And, just I'm a musician, and I'm part of most of the people that's in those crowds. It's generally all men, and 75% of them are musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And it's because the level of musicianship is so freaking high in that band. It's just like every one of them.
Yeah, when Jordan Rudess came into the bringing the Juilliard experience and the classical training that he had. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, just all of them. I didn't realize how much I missed Portnoy in the band because, Mike Mangini did an admirable job. He's a phenomenal drummer. But there's just something about, Portnoy's style that just fits that band better.
Oh, for sure.
It just fits the band.
It reunites the three main people in Dream Theater, which is John Petrucci, John Young, and Mike Portnoy, the three caballeros who went to Berkeley, Boston.
Yeah.
Also camped out at the Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah.
Every time they wanted to see like Rush or Yes or Iron Maiden or Metallica, the three of them would camp out with their sleeping bags.
Yeah. It's wild.
They were true fans of all this cool music. And my time with them will always be cherished.
Yeah.
But it's a special shout out to the one and only Steve Baird, our fellow Canadian, who was their LD before a few tours that I did with them. And then since I left, he's been with them since.
Oh, I didn't realize that he went back to them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because their current design is really nice. It's obviously they're playing larger venues now and doing quite successfully. And which is great because I mean they always sort of chugged it out in theaters and smaller sheds and stuff like that, but now they're doing proper arenas and stuff too. So it's great to see because they're such a great band, and LaBrie's struggling a little bit, which you're gonna. I mean, when you write those songs in your 30s and you're singing them in your 50s or 60s. Shit happens,
That's right. Well, guess what? I went to see John Anderson a few weeks ago. I brought my daughter with me. we had to go see John in Anaheim, and it was a school night, and it was so sad because at intermission I didn't catch John's wife in time to find a way to say hello to John.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We were there in spirit and physically for most of the show. And then on top of it, one of my good friends, Matt Beck, who was the musical director for Rob Thomas, who played with Matchbox 20 since 2003. He's in Band Geeks right now, freaking out, playing all Steve Howe's parts for John
That's
Henderson.
so cool.
So
that's really cool.
Great little...
So how did John sound?
Amazing. He's 80 years old.
And he's still singing the stuff okay?
Yes, he ran on stage. His pitch was perfect. His tone was incredible.
Really?
It was just surreal. It was crazy I'm so happy I was there.
See, I think he came through here and someone said, hey, do you want to go? One of my friends who gets tickets to everything because he's a first responder and they just get, thrown at him constantly.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, you want to go see it? And I'm like, I'd have to drive 40 minutes. I don't feel like it,
Couldn't care less. It took
yes,
almost
in their
2 hours
80s.
of traffic.
Yeah. Yes, in their 80s. I don't know,
Yeah.
But so now I'm sad that I didn't go because
Band Geeks is a great cover band that was touring, and then John spotted them on YouTube or something, and he gave the bass player a call, and he goes, "Can we go on tour? I'll sing." And imagine.
So he just inserted himself into a Yes tribute band, basically. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh my God, is that cool? That's like the opposite of how that story normally goes, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Like Boston, they found the singer who was a Home Depot accountant or whatever. They found him on YouTube. Yeah, and Journey and
yes, of course, the real the
Judas Priest.
Yes.
Judas Priest found what was his name?
Oh, really? They had to... Oh,
Spike or something like that. Like, I can't remember his name, the singer from Priest. Somewhere out there right now, there's somebody yelling at me. No, but the other guy that replaced Rob when he left. Yeah. But anyways, it's always such a great story, but I'd never heard it in total reverse where it was...
John, I can imagine the phone call. The guy didn't believe
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, they're playing like bars and little local festivals and stuff, like, the Peach Festival in Timbuktu, Nowheresville, right? And suddenly they're touring as Yes.
Yeah. And it was crazy. They started with Close to the Edge.
Wow.
Perpetual Change.
Oh, my goodness.
Awaken. I was freaking out.
And they were good? They were like...
Oh, my gosh. They were so good.
Yeah. Like, they fooled you?
I closed my eyes and it was Yes.
Wow.
No doubt. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really miss Chris Squire. Like, I don't remember...
Well, I also miss Alan White, my
Oh, yeah.
Alan. Yeah.
But Chris Squire just had that sound. He had that thing that he did with the pick on the Rickenbacker and stuff.
I know. Well, he told me how that all came about because he was
told
such
me
a
too.
fan of The Who.
Yeah. And he told me too.
He took Pete and he took John Entwistle, Pete Townsend, and he smashed them together. And then he found this ridged pick that has ridges on them, and he played it sideways to scratch the strings.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yes, he showed me his technique. It was like, oh my gosh, you made it even more difficult. It's crazy.
Yeah. He did that whole thing with me too. It was in the Greek theater. And I think a nice looking girl walked in and she had weed or something. And it was like, okay, I'll see you later.
Club Yes.
I was out.
We used to call that Club Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of the show, Chris would open the door. Club Yes.
That's hilarious. Yeah. He was a neat guy, man. He was a neat and very talented guy. Like, to me, like every band I think has sort of the guys that you can't do without. And to me, it was sort of like him and John, it was like, to me, they were Yes. Like to you, maybe it was Steve Howe or whoever, but
it was the combination of all of them, especially my last tour with them. Rick Wakeman came back. So I had the classic 5 Yes Men lineup.
Which tour was that?
That was their 35th anniversary tour in '03.
Okay. So that was after, like, because the last one I think that I even saw them was the one that Smeaton did, and I had all Martin's stuff on it. It was 902 One Live or whatever, 902, whatever that was called, 90210, I think it was the album. but or 902, whatever the hell it was. That one,
Yeah.
the one with Owner of a Lonely Heart. That one.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, so I don't know if you heard. Have you heard about Bob?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, Bob Schockrell. Oh my goodness, that hit me like a ton of bricks this morning.
Yeah.
It's so
I
sad.
think it was Sunday, wasn't it, that he passed?
Oh, I just saw the news this morning. On
Oh,
Facebook, so
yeah.
that's how I found out. And,
Yeah.
yeah. Bob was unbelievable. As the president of High End Systems in our time there,
Yeah.
I'll always remember his approach to fine wine at a dinner.
Hell yeah.
The first bottle was the only one that was expensive. After that, your taste buds are ruined, and the cheap wine came out, and it was totally
Yeah.
fine. I understood that. It was
Yeah. It wasn't always like that. Because I was
No,
at
I'm sure.
I was at some dinners with him where it flowed pretty well. But his own cellar, like at his house, I went to some
I'm
parties
sure.
at his house where there were some pretty spectacular bottles of wine
the cork
flying
collection. Yeah.
around. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, we cried on the phone when I gave him a call in May of 2000 to tell him that unfortunately it was time for me to spread my wings and leave High End. And so it was sad, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it made sense.
Yeah. Well, certainly for your career trajectory, I mean, you can only stay doing that for so long, and then you're just really causing your career damage at some point, right? Nothing against High End. It's just, to be that captive guy working for the factory is a nice cushy job, but it's not making the most of your opportunities, perhaps.
That's right. Well, the road kept calling me back, and at the time, John Broderick and I had,
Yeah.
started a really amazing relationship with Metallica and Yes. And
Yeah.
so, it just made sense.
Yeah, hello, and thanks for joining me again today for Geezers of Gear. Today's podcast is proudly brought to you by ETC. For 50 years, ETC has made a name for itself in much more than the theater world. ETC lighting, rigging, and control technology has scaled not only across the entire globe, but also to nearly any building size and type you could possibly imagine. Broadway shows, rock concerts, sports stadiums, outdoor parks, TV studios, convention centers, you name it, have all trusted ETC to make their design beautiful and their spaces safe. A big part of that trust comes from ETC's renowned customer support. The global 24/7 tech support team stands behind every ETC product, whether you're in the middle of tech on a high school theater production or scheduling a light show on the facade of an iconic building. ETC's support has always been incredibly responsive and helpful, but now employees have even more of a personal stake in maintaining that reputation. The company has become 100% employee owned. Each person building the fixtures, developing the control software, and picking up support calls is an owner at ETC. Outstanding support, reliable products, innovative technology. This is the foundation of excellence that ETC has built over the past 50 years.
Yeah.
So yesterday or day before yesterday, when I heard, I had to go back and this isn't a plug, but I had him on the podcast, episode 32. And so I went back and listened to it, and it was recorded in, I think, July of 2019. And I think very early 2020, like January or February, is when he went into a home. And so it might have even been before that. It might have been in end of 2019. So I listened back because at the time I knew later, like that's what had happened, that he left Roby because he was, fairly starting to discover pretty significant dementia. But when I recorded it, I didn't know. But after the recording, because Henry was still working with me, and after the recording, I said to Henry, something was wrong. Like, Bob was forgetting way more than usual, and like struggling with some really simple people's names and just things that you'd think he'd know. And it just, something was off, and I could tell, right? And listening back to it, it's first of all, I had forgotten some of the stories and stuff, but it was great to hear his voice, and
He was a
certainly
pivotal
sad.
part. He was a pivotal part of high-end success in the '90s
Yeah.
when I was there. You couldn't put a team of three ownership,
Yeah.
partners like Bob Lowell,
So different,
Richard.
but they got along so well, and they did such a
Absolutely.
great
And
job
they
building
complemented each
an
other
incredible
perfectly.
company.
It was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I actually, I spoke with Dave, his son, and Dave listened to the podcast and sent me a message thanking me. He said it was just great to hear his voice because, for the last 18 months, he's basically been whatever you call it, couldn't speak. And so yeah, he said it was great to hear his voice. And then I talked with Bellevue, I talked with Lowell, and, it's just swapping some old stories and just talking about, this was inevitable. Like when you're in the hospital for a period of time with dementia, you know that it's a downhill slope. It's just how quickly you're moving downhill. And I have, unfortunately, firsthand experience. My mom has been in a home for a little over 10 years, and she's moving much more slowly than Bob did, obviously. But still, like every time, and she's in her 90s now. So she's lived a long life. And, would I prefer that I could have conversations with her that, she knows what she's saying and stuff? Yes. But she's happy. She still talks. She still has fun. She still enjoys life somehow, even though she has no idea what planet she's on. But I notice little bits of different things because I have my house there and I go there for the summers. She's up in Canada, and then I come back to Florida in the winter. So every summer I see her 5 or 6 times throughout the summer. And, every time there's just little nuanced changes that you see, and it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible disease.
I speak to my mother every morning. She's in Montreal. She's 93.
My mom's 93.
She's all there, and like you just said, every day I just want to.
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure
you have to. You have to. You never know. Like now, I practically am in tears every time I leave Calgary to come back to Florida, because I always think, is this the last one? Was that the last visit? Did I say everything I needed to say? And there's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. Fortunately, AI is that's one of the diseases that I believe AI will solve in the next 5 years. And I'm no doctor, so I don't know anything special, but I believe that AI is moving so quickly now that most of the major diseases are going to be solved, cured in the next, call it 5 to 10 years.
I won't digress into politics, but sadly, healthy population is not good for medical and pharmaceutical purposes. But anyway,
well, that's not really politics. That's just common sense. You know
Yeah,
what I
I know.
mean? And it sucks. It really does suck. And, insurance companies are evil, and pharmaceutical companies are evil, and they all have malicious intent. And
Well,
unfortunately,
it's the
we're
lobbying
their
that
victims.
doesn't help either. Yeah.
The lobbying is terrible. Yeah, lobbying, I would be all for having lobbying completely removed from government, making it illegal to have lobbyists, because again, it just plays into the whole he with the most wins. And
Which is what seems to be happening right now around the world.
it is, but it's always been the case. It's just now it's so accentuated. And, example, like I had a 3-year battle against Google. They stole from me. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say the name. Against a very large corporation in the United States. And they stole a trademark from me. And I just first kind of went, hey, guys, you're stealing my trademark. Can you please just stop using it? And they flipped me the bird, and so I sent them a letter saying, you need to stop using my trademark or I'm going to have to do something. And they flipped me the bird, and so I had to sue them. I had no choice, really, because they stole it from me.
The sad part is their contingency of lawyers must be way larger than yours.
Oh, you have no idea. Like they had people carrying briefcases for their lawyers that were paid double what my lawyer was paid. They had, like every mediation, they'd have 4 lawyers with 4 assistants, and the lawyers were in $10,000 suits and the assistants were in $5,000 suits. And I mean, it was incredible. It was just like I called my lawyer Aaron Brockovich because that's sort of what we were at that time. We were like the little tiny bug on their ass, you know. And end of the day, what did I get? I got basically a judgment that says, "Yep, they were wrong. They stole your trademark. You own the trademark, but they don't have to pay you anything."
Oh my God.
So,
Come on.
I got back my trademark, and they stopped using it because they just replaced the name with something else, and the damages were massive, but they didn't have to pay anything. And why? Because the fatal error that I made was suing them in Silicon Valley, and this was the result of a consultation I had that said this would be the best thing to do, because if you sue them in Florida, where your company is based, they won't, the lawyers and judges won't understand the technology as much. So you need to go to the hub of technology and sue them there. Well, I didn't think all the way through this, because every judge, every lawyer in Silicon Valley wants to work for the biggest companies at some point, right? And they're all getting paid somehow from those companies. So, let's just say I lost. And, I didn't lose. I won, but I didn't get anything. So, except, $1 million in legal fees and 3 years of stress and everything else, right? So,
At least that's behind you, sadly, but...
No, but, it does leave a bitter taste. And I'm not one of the ones who says, it's the corporations, because I'm a corporation, but it's the evil corporations. It's the corporations who don't care who they kill along the way, or don't care which grandmother, is not going to be able to afford those meds anymore because you're charging so much money for them, or whatever, So, yeah.
Corporations run like a dictatorship.
Yeah, kind of.
The problem is.
Yeah, kind of. Well, and again, I mean, I don't care how they're run. I don't care what their structure is or who's making money or whatever, as long as there's some scruples involved. Ethics. Yeah. And in so many cases there's not, sadly. So, but anyways, yeah, Bob is gone, and
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard about his wife, Carol, as well.
Oh my goodness, the explosion next door.
Is that crazy? Like all in a week too.
my
Like what a bad week,
Yeah, I know. Life challenges sometimes can
Holy shit.
derail your well-being. So I feel for them so much.
It is just nuts, and I was talking to Dave about this, the son, and he's like, yeah, we're getting through it somehow, but she's out of she was in intensive care and on a machine, and so she's now off life support and breathing on her own and stuff,
Oh,
and
my goodness.
expected to fully recover, hopefully. But yeah, just crazy. Like the house next door to you blows up, and her house just caved in on her, and she was buried under rubble for like a day.
Wow.
Crazy.
I just can't think about it. Wow.
It's crazy. And now, he's dealing with making sure his mom stays alive, plus scheduling a funeral for his dad. I mean, it's just a terrible week. It's like, I can't imagine a worse week. So God bless him. Good.
Our thoughts with the Shockwell family.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. And, I had a long talk with Carol at another friend, Craig's funeral last year. And I sat with Carol, Bob's wife, for, 45 minutes, talking about dementia and talking about what she was going through and just offering support. And, I have 15 years of experience dealing with my mom, and just telling her some of the things we did. Like one of the examples, every time I visit my mom, I stop at Tim Hortons and I get a certain type of muffin that she loves. And my girlfriend and I go in and we sing happy birthday to her every time we go there. And she's like, oh, it's my birthday today. Yes, it is, Mom. It's your birthday. And at first I got a little shit from the home. They said, you're being deceptive and we don't agree with that methodology. And, we think it's wrong. And I basically said, fuck you. And then eventually they said, we're really sorry we said anything because we love what you're doing. It's so amazing. It makes her so happy.
Bringing
joy.
Yes.
She forgets it 3 minutes later. It doesn't make it. I could sing her happy birthday again in a half hour and she'd be like, oh, it's my birthday. There's just no memory there whatsoever. So, it's a good thing that makes her smile, and it makes other people sing along and they get happy in the home and stuff. So yeah, we love to do that. And I told her that, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to do it." And so I don't know if she did it. I'd love to talk to her about it at some point, but yeah, so if you have a parent in a home with dementia and their short-term memory is gone, go ahead and sing them happy birthday. They love it.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they love it.
It's a great tip.
So I've never even said it, but thanks for coming back. It is your birthday today, and I'm sure there's better things you could be doing.
Oh, we'll do tons of stuff this afternoon when my daughter comes out of school.
Yeah.
She's begging me to use my free race at the electric go-karts. So.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah,
well,
it's Miami week, so let's go.
Will you let her win, or will you?
Well, we can't race against each other at K1 because it's juniors and adults.
Oh, okay.
So they step down the power of the junior
cars
versus the adults. So she's a little pissed off and worried about the boys because the boys just,
push her around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And she wants to go fast, but it depends on the car they give her. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's funny you say this because my son called me first thing this morning, and he's like, my son's a driver, right?
Oh, yes.
So he says to me, "Dad, I forgot to tell you about something." And I said, "What?" And he said, ESPN contacted me and they want to do a segment in Miami. They're booking K1 exclusively, so it's closed. And they've got full camera crews there and stuff.
How cool is that?
And he said, "I'm racing against some big ESPN announcer from the races." And so we're racing against each other. And he's talking shit to me, saying how badly he's going to beat me and all this stuff. And I said, "Jeremy, lay him out. Just crush him. Make him embarrassed on TV." And he said, "You sure?" And I said, "Yeah, why not? Like, what do you want to make friends with the guy? Beat him." And he was like, "Okay, that's what I was thinking too." So yeah, he's doing that today. He's actually probably right in the middle of it right now. So I wish I could go, but my ex-wife's going to be
It's a K1 day on my birthday. Yeah, there we go.
It's cool. That's very cool. That's a good idea. I love that.
Yeah. I'll be sore as hell tomorrow, but it doesn't matter.
I raced against my kid once, and not only did he beat me, but he put me into a wall, and I was so sore for days, both, mentally and physically,
Yes.
And so he's tried to get me to race him again. "I won't put you in the wall, I promise." And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, though. I appreciate it." He even tries to get me to race on his sim, and I won't do it because he just wants to make fun of me and laugh at me. So
That's funny.
I put all of my racing dollars into you, kid. So don't make fun of me. Don't make fun of me. I gave you this life. So anyways.
So happy. He's really coming up the ranks.
Yeah, he's kind of paused because the next rank is so expensive, and I can either run my company or I can go out chasing sponsorship for him. And it's a full-time gig. Like, you have to have basically a sponsorship person who's constantly working on that until you get to like an Andretti or something who is willing to pay for the whole thing. And it's just so rare now. Like, everyone shows up with a driver plus a huge stack of cash these days.
Yeah.
So,
pay to drive. Yeah, it's crazy.
We know of someone in IndyCar right now who's a good friend of ours who we grew up racing karts with, who paid $40 million to get into IndyCar. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They did. So, I can't compete at that level.
No, exactly.
Not quite. No. But that'll be fun for you. Good.
Yes, that's going to be our little event, and then some kind of sushi on a conveyor belt to finish the night. It's a school night.
You're in LA still, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sushi in LA is so good. It's just some of my favorite. Well, Austin too. Like, Austin has some incredible sushi now. But Austin and LA, those are probably two of my favorite sushi places right now that I've found anyways. But did you ever hear the one where the Eric Loader podcast that he did on his 50th birthday?
No, actually, that was on my list to check out as well.
He decided that he couldn't come on my podcast till he was 50 because that's geezerdom.
The geezer.
Yeah,
mental
geezers are 50. Even though I just had Sooner on for like the third time last week, and I don't think she's 40 yet. But anyways, so we recorded a beautiful podcast, an hour and a half long, and it was just amazing. And he was getting ready to go play golf after the podcast, and I finished, and I look at my screen and I go, no. And because I had just hit stop recording, it started recording. And I'm like, why did that just happen? And I'm thinking, and I'm like, that could only be because it was stopped. It wasn't recording. So when I hit stop recording, so I go back and look, and I hadn't recorded anything from it, right? So I tell him, and he goes, oh, well, let me just grab another coffee and go pee, and let's just do it again.
We'll do it again.
And I went, you got to be kidding me. Like,
What a trooper.
Who's better than you? Yeah, what a trooper. So I was like, at least let me pay for the round of golf or something,
Can you imagine that our first chat on this wonderful podcast was 5 years ago?
Wasn't it almost 6?
Yeah,
was it in 99 or 2020?
No, it was the week before the COVID shutdown.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
That's
right. It was in
crazy.
2020. Yeah, so 5 years ago.
It was March
I know.
2020.
It's disgusting how fast time is going right now. Like,
gosh.
I think of things and I go, oh, yeah, I saw them one time. It was probably 5 years ago. And I'm like, it was 20 years ago. Like, what? 20 years ago. It's crazy. Like, when I start thinking of things that happened 35 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah. I was lucky, though, because I know that the touring industry was pretty much halted for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
At least
it was
18
brutal.
months, right?
It was brutal. I know so many LDs who had to take like second mortgages on their house, had to borrow money, had to take bank loans, had to do whatever they could to survive, sell gear, sell their MA console or whatever. But you were smart. You had already transitioned.
Well, yeah, I was still on the fence. I was still. It's crazy because I was designing Matchbox's 2020 tour. It would have been Matchbox 2020.
2020.
We were just about to bid it to vendors, and then all of a sudden everything shut down, and so I was kind of keeping one foot in the touring industry by joining the wonderful meetings that we were having online every week.
Yeah,
and I was also checking with the movie industry to see what they were talking about, and the fact that organization has some benefits when you have union leaders that can really sit with the employer and figure out a protocol to make sure that we could get back to work as fast as possible. And it's incredible that in August, we all started to go back to work. So it was only a 5-month pause in the entertainment and the movie side of the world.
Which is shocking because, like, for years, like until just recently, all you got was foreign stuff on Netflix or whatever, right? So it seemed like we didn't come back to work. Well, I guess then we had the long strike too.
Oh, well, that's another slap in the face. After that, but I'm still pretty proud of the leadership and the employer, how they all got together and just made sure that they could create this COVID supervisor concept and the testing that was involved, because in August there was no vaccines yet. People were still on ventilators in the emergency room, and the biggest wave hadn't hit Los Angeles yet because we always get it later. And so my first gig back from the COVID break was for a fruit company. I'm not allowed to... just like earlier,
all good. Yeah,
a fruit computer company.
Yeah,
and you know how they do their product launches? It's always with an audience and a theater.
Yeah, it's a big theatrical to do.
They had to pivot, and they had to make it more like a pre-recorded video. So they started to bring like top cinematographers up in Cupertino.
Yeah.
to the fruit company
Yeah.
headquarters.
Yeah.
And I was part of the second round because I think they had already had tried one of those product launches in July. And so I went there in August. Imagine my first job after being sequestered for 5 months. I've got to put gear in a van, drive myself from LA to Cupertino,
Oh my goodness.
and live in a hotel for 3 weeks. And then testing every day and masks and all. It was kind of wild. And,
But guess what? At least you were working, man.
well, I
You
was
know?
working, and it was Janusz Kaminski, our DP, our cinematographer, the famous Spielberg cinematographer, and it was
Yeah.
great for me to reconnect with him because I'd worked with him on Call of the Wild. So, and he's such a character. He's just
Yeah.
wild, so funny on set. So yeah, that was the first thing that I did, and it was a whirlwind of work after that because the studios were like, "Hey, we've been off for 5 months, and we've got to get some."
And today's podcast is brought to you by Artistry in Motion. When it's time to make a moment unforgettable, Artistry in Motion delivers. Since 1994, they've been the go-to source for top-tier confetti and streamer special effects, turning ordinary events into explosive, show-stopping experiences. From concerts and TV productions to major sporting events and theme parks, they bring the wow factor with precision and creativity. So whether you need a massive stadium drop or a subtle, picture-perfect cascade, they make it happen on time, every time. Their team doesn't just supply confetti, they collaborate with show designers, event planners, and production teams to ensure every effect is camera ready and crowd approved. Want to take your next event to the next level? Hit them up, artistryinmotion.com, and let's make memories happen.
projects.
Yeah.
So I remember going to Sony after that job in September because we had to do the Ghostbusters Afterlife reshoot.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
They'd been holding that movie because we shot it in 2019.
In Calgary.
Wanted to in Calgary, that's right.
Yeah.
And then so imagine we didn't do the reshoots until September 2020, and then finally it came out.
Was that in Calgary too?
No, actually we did it in Minnesota in Culver City.
Oh, I was going to say, you bastard, you got to go to Calgary and I couldn't, and I own a house up there, you know? Yeah.
My time in Calgary for the main the principal photography was awesome.
Yeah.
Because I had always gone there with bands on a day, like show day and then leave, or a day off and leave.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like, do I know Calgary? No, I don't. But by the time I was there for 4.5 months and traveled across Alberta and Drumheller, and oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
We had such a great time. And then that movie was so cool because of the tribute that they did to Egon Spengler,
Yeah.
the actor who passed away. And so that was cool. And then all of a sudden, I didn't even have to worry about my next job because I took my gear from the stages at Sony for Ghostbusters Afterlife reshoots, and then I pushed them to other stages to do Bullet Train with Brad Pitt.
Jesus. Yeah.
And Bullet Train, I don't know if you saw that one. That was pretty fun.
I didn't.
That's the crazy bunch of assassins that end up on the same bullet train with a briefcase that has $10 million in it, and then everybody wants to kill each other on the train. It was pretty goofy movie, but that was nuts too because now
You know, I
imagine
think I
this
did
was-
see it. Thinking
was
back, I think I did see it
there
because
you
that
go.
rings too many bells, and plus I wouldn't like normally the massive actors. I'm shallow enough that I'll watch all their movies, and I don't go looking for the, the more off the beaten path stuff. I just go for the A-listers. So I think I did see it. Yeah.
It's crazy that they barely went to Japan to shoot exteriors. We shot the whole movie at Sony in Culver City.
Really?
On location in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Huh.
And it says trying to reconnect. Okay, we're good. And that was nuts because the big wave of COVID came over the holidays, 2020, 2021. And we actually got shut down for a week because one member got COVID and other people on the crew, they were all like stuck in these tight train situations, So they gave us a week off after New Year's, and then off we went. And finished it.
Yeah, I mean, those early days were tough because nobody really knew what we were dealing with. Like most of us hadn't had it yet, and most of us, but I think as it got a little later on and you kind of started going, wait a sec, it's kind of like a bad cold, right? And if you've got comorbidities, or if you're really old, or your immune system is weak, yes, it might do much more harm to you. But otherwise, guess what? It's a cold. You're going to get over it pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Now it is, for sure.
Yeah, but it took a while it took a couple years to get to that point. Plus the battling politics on all sides of, what should we call it? What should we make it look like? How bad is it? How bad isn't it? We
were all worried that any of our crew members that were affected by the strain that they got.
Yeah.
We're asking every day, is everybody okay, or are they on ventilators or something?
Yeah.
There was no vaccines yet.
Yeah.
And but it was a crazy shoot. If you want to talk about gear on that one, that was wild, because
the train one?
Stage 27 at Sony is the famous Wizard of Oz stage. It has a 2-tier ceiling. The low part, if I remember correctly, is around 57 feet, and then the high part's at 80 firms in that stage. And what they did is they put two static trains, one that was economy and the other one was business class, and they had 140 feet of video screen on both sides that were on tracks.
Oh, wow.
That could go from one train to the other. Then we had sky panels, S60s, on trusses to do over the window effects that were also able to track between business class and economy. And then we had color blazes on the ground to uplight the windows. Then we had movers. We had Roby BMFLs on one side and solar frames on the other. It was crazy.
That's wild.
And all LEDs inside, like LED strips everywhere to light the actors, and it was really nuts. And then the wildest part is on the other side of the same stage. They had another set of 2.5 cars on airbags with giant winches at both ends that could pull it in and out of a station. And in that movie, there's 8 stations, if I'm not mistaken. It's the same one every single time. Got dressed.
Really?
Yep.
So tell me this, because I have no idea how it all works. And I had I don't know if you heard that one, but I had Chalky on recently.
Yes, my good friend.
He talked about you like you're some kind of a demigod rock star of some sort. You're like up here on a throne somewhere, sitting looking down at all the minions, which is probably a very deserved accolade. But so when you're doing a show like this and you got solo spots on one side or solo frames, I don't remember what you said already, but and BMFLs on the other side, are you designing all of that, or is that a DP? Or
in this situation, that particular job was Ross Dunkerley, a phenomenal gaffer who probably has about 17 Clint Eastwood movies in his arsenal.
Jesus. Yeah.
And Ross and I have done some good stuff. I did Jersey Boys with him. Clint shook my hand after the show.
Oh, that's cool.
Really good.
I like the lights.
I know. So Ross asked me to do Bullet Train with him, and Jonathan Sella was the cinematographer, great cinematographer, and he works a lot with David Leitch, the director, who used to be a stunt coordinator. And David Leitch is pretty crazy about bringing stunts into his movies since he started directing. And so
when you say crazy, you mean he just likes wild stunts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And,
again, probably connected to his past, right? Like, yeah.
So Jonathan Sella, the cinematographer, designed the way that he wanted to do this, because, like I said, video screens on both sides. So when you watch Bullet Train, if you look out the window, it was custom made videos of the landscape of Japan, mostly at night. So it was cool because it was all these video screens and LED buildings passing by, or when they're in the countryside, you just see a little bit of.
So it was LED screens showing LED screens.
Yep, they were capturing that live with the camera. And then what we needed to do is I needed to animate the direction of travel with the color blazes and the sky panels and the movers. So every shot in Bullet Train, when they're moving, It's not only the visual foolery of the video screens that you're watching, but it's also lighting
Yeah. Yeah.
passing,
To
and it
sell
had
it.
to be
Yeah.
yeah, and it had to be perfectly choreographed with the colors that he wanted to come on all sides. And we
So,
tried to sync it with video, but it was really tough to pixel map our
so
little
the
pinpoints of
let me
light.
just again, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff and many
No.
things, but no, but I don't know anything about how movies or TV is lit. But so the cinematographer basically sits in a meeting and says, "This is the look I'm after. These things,
He's the lighting
whooshing
designer.
looks on the
Yeah,
side,
yeah,
right?"
yeah. That's right.
And so then is it the gaffer who says, "Okay, I'm going to turn that into some fixtures," and he starts deciding what fixtures will make
Yeah,
that look?
then he asks me to draw it in scale to the sets that we get from art department.
Okay.
And so Vectorworks comes into play really quickly.
Yeah.
And because I knew that I would never operate from anywhere inside these trains because they were too small,
Yeah.
and everybody was masked up, and it was only a minimal crew that had to go inside these confined spaces, I decided to create the models in Light Converse, LA, and have that live next to me so that I could see what I was doing virtually.
Okay.
And then I would look on my two monitors that I get from the camera crew, and I would just make sure that what I'm seeing in LA makes sense in real life. And
How close
off
is it
we went.
usually?
pretty
pretty
darn
close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. So,
Yeah.
so we were able to do some fun stuff on that show. There were long 14-hour days where it was constantly programming for the next shot, but then also operating during the shots to make all these live passes.
And in the previs, you can simulate the movement of the train and stuff too. Like
No, well, the train's not moving at all. So
right, that's
I didn't
true.
have
Yeah, the lights
I
are.
didn't have the video
Yeah.
screens in Light Converse, but I just
Yeah.
had the lighting because we had lighting everywhere. So it was
Yeah.
really important for me to have a representation to make sure that I was doing the right thing, because it's so tough on camera because you don't see the lights.
Yeah.
Cinematographers and gaffers, in my opinion, their best secret tool that they have in their arsenal is to make every single light invisible unless it's a desk lamp that you
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
But the other 17 lights are just completely out of shot.
Yeah.
So I can never see them on my screens.
Uh,
So that's why having Light Converse next to me, showing my rig, I was able, especially because this shot now we're looking this way and the direction of travel is west. So it was like constantly flipping our chases.
yeah.
I had so many
Interesting.
pages and the playback wing, and it was a ballet of, I felt like Rick Wakeman. It was pretty,
So is there any collaboration though, like between you, the gaffer, and
Yeah,
the cinematographer, as far as
Jonathan
choosing
Sellas
fixtures and things, or fixture types at least? Like
they
we
always
need a
ask
wash
me-
here, we need a spot here.
Yeah, they always ask me my
Yeah.
opinion on what we should get. And then, of course, by the time we get into discussions with the studio vendor and their subs, then they tell us what they can get.
Right.
But so it's always a good compromise. But we
Yeah. At
ended
the
up
end of the
with
day, it's what's in the shop. What have we got?
Yeah,
You know?
but they always go to Four Wall or PRG.
Yeah.
Because the studio vendors, they have movie lights that we use constantly, but they don't have the technology of movers.
Yeah.
And LED strips. So they
Yeah.
then they sub that out.
You're still all hog, right?
I will always be.
And so, are you one of the people responsible for Hog having such a strong hold of the movie game?
Well, it's not just me. I mean, in Local 728, which is the set lighting IATSE local in Hollywood,
Yeah.
you have to attribute the success of Hog on Scott Barnes.
Yeah,
no doubt
that
in
name
my
came up
mind.
on the chalky thing too.
Josh
Quite often.
Thatcher,
Yeah.
Brian Booth, John Crimmins. Those are all the programmers that championed Hog in the. Well, Scott actually brought Hog 3 to Lemony Snicket's in '03 because they had pretty much acquired every possible dimmer in North America for that
Yeah.
show. You could not get a dimmer rack to save your life that year because they were all on a soundstage here in LA. And the control at that time was wild in '03 because Hog was the first system that could expand with more processors.
Right.
So that's when Scott brought it up to his gaffer, and he said, I know how to control that many channels without having 6 lighting consoles. What was the
and 6 operators and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all on Scott, and it's wild because he's been consulting and working at high end ETC now with
really?
Sarah. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Scott and I went to ETC home office a few years ago to brainstorm the next evolution. So it was kind of cool to be invited to be a part of it.
Have you used them yet? Like the Tour Hog and
the new stuff?
all the new stuff?
No, I can't wait to put my fingers on
they look good. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but they look nice. It's a well designed sort of cross section of the different control types you should have for different users. Like not everyone needs a Grand MA3, right. Like there are different applications, different consoles needed, different sizes and prices needed for those different things. And, so it's interesting. Like I had to learn a little bit about it because I did we do this, we started a new podcast called Future Tech, which is 100% AI. So the logo's AI, the music at the beginning is AI, and the entire podcast and the 2 hosts are AI. And so we have to feed a bunch of information to train the AI on what are we talking about. And today we're talking about this new line of hogs that are out.
Oh, wow.
And we did this podcast just a few weeks ago because ETC is one of our sponsors. And so I learned a bunch about it just from that. So
I'm excited. I think it's cool that they are transitioning the 4 software into the 5 software seamlessly, where right now 5 and 4 can talk to each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you have on the network. So there's some really cool tips and tricks that they picked up from that brainstorming session. Because I told them, I said, 64 universes would be really cool. And then when the HPU came out with 64 universes, that was like, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
So now that the new line of hogs have 64 as well, that makes me feel good on a movie set because I have, let's say, 7 stages with 7 HPUs running independently but still connected.
Yeah.
So I can turn on anything I want from any stage.
Yeah.
It's all networked. But I always have a little fear because if the HPU croaks, then I got to bring out the spare. But now that the new consoles have 64 universes as well on board, if the HPU would have a problem,
everything just goes straight to the console.
So
that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you just mentioned sort of the compatibility thing. That's huge. Like I can't believe we're still so arrogant in this industry that we think people are going to just buy us $80,000 new piece of gear or $50,000 or whatever, depends which brand, but and not make it either backwards compatible or at least allow you to use other peripherals or whatever, like accessories
or you're stuck
things
in the old software because the new one's not quite there yet.
Yeah. It's weird because in consumer electronics, companies get sued for that stuff. Like Apple gets sued when they have a connector that doesn't fit their new phone, but so now they got to get all new, accessories and chargers and things like that, or like they get class action lawsuits over that stuff. But we do it all the time in our industry. We make your stuff completely, no longer useful. Yeah. So, sorry, I got a throat.
I'm excited. We'll see. It's June or July that we're gonna finally.
You're gonna get see one.
These, yeah. Well, I'm putting an order in.
Yeah. I think I've heard both sides. Like I've heard it's an incredible evolution of the 4 and it's so amazing and stuff. And then I've heard some people downplay it a little bit, like people who saw it working at LDI or whatever, who kind of said, like, because they had a secret room at LDI, and some people said to me, yeah, it's basically more of the same.
Well,
And
the infancy of the next evolution, and we'll see where it goes. I mean,
yeah, you know what? I mean, for how long did people run MA3s with 2 software? I know a lot of people who still do today, so you just bought new hardware and you're running the same old software on it. Why?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the best part is the alpha program's been on for anybody who was able to approach high-end and ETC and say, I'd like to test.
Oh, really? So you could try the 5 software on a 4.
And it's finally in beta now. So we're getting close
cool.
to a first release of 5. They're timing it so that when the purchases are delivered in June, July, that 5 will be solid. So it's great.
The other thing you said, which I think is really interesting and important, is like, if I left any mark on this industry at all that wasn't nasty and dirty and disgusting and miserable. One of the things when I went to Martin, they said, why can't we get into the concert touring business? Or why aren't we succeeding in that business? And I said, because you haven't listened to enough people yet. Like you first of all, you got to get to know people, and then you got to listen to what they want, and then give them something they want. Like, they're not just going to want something because you made it. And so I started this whole thing with bringing designers to the factory and bringing designers to cool places, bring designers to Italy, bring designers to wherever, bring lighting company owners and managers and stuff to different places. So I'd bring all these people to Denmark, and they'd sit right there with the main engineers and say, these are the things we want. And now it wasn't me screaming for things because nobody wanted to listen to me, but it was, the Peter Morses and Patrick Woodruffs of the world. And they listened to them. So, guess what? Suddenly, boom, now we're a concert lighting company because we're building things that people actually want. And I'll tell you, somebody else who's really great at that is the guys at ICD. And I'm not promoting them because they won't sponsor me yet, but Gary and Noel and Nick in the past, before he retired to become a fisherman, they listen to people, and oh, you want a light that does this and this and this and weighs about this much and looks kind of like this, and sure. So they build it, and guess what? The people who asked for it either spec or buy hundreds of them, and it becomes successful. So, it's not that crazy of an idea, really.
And Sarah did the same thing. Sarah Clausen at ETC High End. She's championing the New Hog project, and she put these brainstorming sessions here in the U.S. and in Europe with programmers that are have a good reputation in the touring world and the movie world, and so it was really cool that they listened to us. And now we have the compromise, because it's always a compromise from our crazy ideas that we had. We wanted to be super futuristic, and by the time you try to sell something, you just got to come up with a decent price. Otherwise, people will laugh at you. Like,
well, first you got to be able to build it, and then you got to be able to sell it for whatever it is that you built it for, plus whatever profit margin you're trying to make.
Right.
And one of the problems that I understand, and I think a lot of people who buy this stuff don't understand, is, well, if I look at this thing, like, a big example has happened, and I'm not picking on MA, but they just happen to be the victim of this particular situation. So there's been a couple of Chinese manufacturers who have been showing fake MA2 consoles. And they actually had one on display at LDI this past year. And I think, I don't know if lawyers made them take it off the booth or something. I heard something like that. But, so people will say to me, why is MA charging, X thousands of dollars when a Chinese company can put the same thing out for 20% of the cost, like 1/5 of the cost?
Not these days.
Well, no, but the thing is, engineering is very expensive. Not these days. I finally got what you were just saying. Yeah, so it's that times 145% or whatever.
There you go.
But engineering is very, very expensive. So building something, designing something is where most of the cost goes. Like, it's like a drug. When a drug comes out on the market, sure, a pill only costs about 2 cents to produce with whatever medicine's in it, right? But it cost them millions and possibly even $1 billion to design that drug and to do years and years of testing and all of the different things they had to do. So they got to recoup the costs. Now, you and I could talk about they're a little over recouping on some of these things, right? But
well, the cool thing, I'm going to say, the advantage now that I feel high-end ETC have is because of the ETC manufacturing capabilities where they build their own motherboards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's very helpful.
So I'd like to, I forgot to ask Sarah, but I have a feeling that this new line of Hog will be at a very high percentage of American made.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, well, it'd be a good time to come out with an American-made product right now, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
But, the other thing is supporting these consoles. Like, everyone wants all the new software versions to be free, of course, right? So every time there's a new version, I want it for free.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If it's going to be for free, those costs have to come from somewhere, because now
it's
not
the
only
initial purchase,
not only do we have to develop the initial software that goes with the product, but for years and years and years, we have to keep coming out with new versions.
Features,
and we're paying a room full of engineers to do that, and everybody just wants it for free. Okay, great. Then we're going to have to instead of making 30% margins on those consoles, we got to make 80% margins on the consoles. And it might sound crazy, but it's not, because it costs a lot of money.
Keep the life of
course. Yeah, of course. And it's going to keep great features coming out. You don't want to choke the company to death financially and then they can't afford to produce new features. Exactly. Or they charge you $10,000 for every new release or something, right? So
I have to give props to high-end and ETC on the fact that because of COVID and the death of Fred, which was so sad as well.
Yeah, of course.
They had to pivot because the whole project was put on hold for so many reasons. But Sarah just championed that HPU idea to set the foundation for what was going to come.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have happened at a better time when the HPU came out, because in the movie business, I saw it coming from when I started in 2010, and here we were in 2021, right after Bullet Train. I got a call to be the key programmer on Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
So pinch me, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Let me think about that for a minute.
When I saw the gear lists, I was like, my rack hogs won't cut it because it's only 16 universes. So I started to figure out a way to move some rack hogs and then invest in some HPUs, because we had 2 stages where I wasn't using 64 universes, but it was in the high 40s. So it was starting to be a little stressful,
Yeah.
And then, of course, I was getting lighting control requests from so many departments. It's just not main unit that has a rig. It's the riggers are setting up these massive rigs on every stages. I was getting the costume department delivered me 5 Darth Vader suits one morning.
Jesus.
And they said, you're going to be controlling the chest piece and the belt. But they had 5 of them that we had to, sort out the wireless starting address. And there was another pinch me moment. I'm going to be lighting Vader.
That is amazing.
And then, of course, then the prop department shows up with their versions of lightsabers. It was the first time, Obi-Wan Kenobi was the first show where lightsabers were going to emanate light. Because in the old days of Star Wars, it was a green stick that could sustain big blows when they're fighting, right?
Yeah.
But there was no lighting the actors. So it was all done in post, and it had no bearing on what a lightsaber does. Now, if you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi, our cinematographer Chung Hoon Chung from South Korea, phenomenal guy.
Yeah.
He lit some of these scenes just with the sabers. And it's just phenomenal.
So what is it? What's the technology in the saber?
So, yes, the prop master, and his name escapes me right now, but we, because it's deep in my memory bank. But he was great because he had his own guy that took the guts of a Skynode wireless receiver. So he opened up the casing and just took the chip. And that was going to fit in the hilt of a lightsaber. Then he took an Arduino chip and he programmed it to give us basic controls of intensity and pixel control. And then what they did is they put 2 strips of pixel LED on the lightsaber hard shaft, and then they covered it with a plexi that had frost built in, so you wouldn't see the pixels. So from the console, I was able to ignite and extinguish a lightsaber, and the color control was already determined, so that I didn't have to choose the color, because it's very precise in the Star Wars world of who gets what color of saber.
Yeah.
But what we discovered, though, during that production is that sending all this information, sometimes with interference from camera or other wireless devices on stage, you could see it ignite, but then all of a sudden it would stop and then continue. So there was a little bit of timing thing that I had to worry about and reposition my transmitters. No pressure, right?
Yeah.
Just I have to turn on Ewan McGregor's lightsaber right on the money for a swipe, and then turn it off right after, or anything like that. So
God.
It was wild, and it was fun. It was a phenomenal
It's
experience.
wild how much technology you have, but still there's some guy somewhere in a room hitting a button to turn the thing on and off, right? That's funny.
Right.
That's hilarious.
But it got improved later on another adventure that I did recently. So
that's funny.
It's been that was pretty awesome. And then, like I said, the HPUs were there at the right time.
Yeah.
To give me enough control without going crazy with DP8000s,
Yeah.
Just to stack the network. Like that. So that was a good show to start moving towards the new Hog world.
Oh, it sounds like it. No, that sounds incredible. That's had to be quite an experience for you.
Yes. Well, the fun part was Deborah Chow, our director, who is Canadian. One day she summoned me on set. So I was like, oh, the principal's calling me to set. But she was giddy when I got there. And then I look next to her, and there's this tall drink of water that's right next to her, and it's Hayden Christensen, who plays Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
And he's grinning from ear to ear because it was his first day on set, reprising his role for the first time in over 20 years.
Jesus.
So happy to be there with Ewan McGregor, reunited from episode 3, their last movie together. And Deborah's like, look, Hayden, this is Benoit. He's our programmer. He's Canadian. And then Hayden's like, oh, this is so cool. So the 3 of us are just Canadian geeks, just geeking out
funny.
over Star Wars on set. It was pretty cool.
You were a big fan of Star Wars prior to doing this?
Oh, my God.
It was a highlight of your life.
The only reason why I'm in entertainment lighting is because of my shock of watching Star Wars in 1977. I was 8 years old, and I walked out of the theater, and I said, I want to do movies. I want to work on movies.
I walked out of the theater and went, I want more popcorn. Like I never thought anything like that.
I was just like, are you kidding me? This is incredible.
You know what's funny? I saw that movie with my cousins. I lived in Calgary, and it was the first and only time my mom took us to meet all my cousins in Burlington, Ontario. And I went to see the movie in some strip mall movie theater in Burlington, Ontario with my cousins, and I'll never forget it. It was such a highlight. It was such a great movie and stuff, but I've just never been a sci-fi person, Like,
oh, okay.
It's just like I liked Star Wars. I liked pretty much every Star Wars movie I saw. I saw the Obi-Wan Kenobi because I knew you were doing it, so I had to watch it. And that's about it. Like I didn't do a lot of the other stuff, like any of the little offshoots of it. I didn't really get involved. So, but yeah, that's cool. What a great story. Yeah,
that was nuts. And when we wrapped that, that was with a different gaffer, Jared Waldron. We had done Iron Man 3 together in 2012. So it's kind of cool that it took a little while for us to reunite. But we did Obi-Wan together. And then I remember towards the end of that year, Ross from Bullet Train called me. He goes, I got another little show. You want to do it with me? It's with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Oh,
So I
wow.
did You People for Netflix, which was such a wild subject matter of trying to see if two people from two different cultures can really fall in love. It was fun to have Julia Louis-Dreyfus and David Duchovny in the cast, and it was an interesting shoot to see to
I
wait for
guess.
Eddie to show up every day with his contingency of 3 vans. He used to
Jesus.
sing the Elvis theme when he arrived on set. Ba-da-da, da-da-da.
So who do you think are bigger, like prima donnas, movie people and or TV people, or rock stars, pop stars? Who's
Well,
more needy?
I haven't seen the prima donna vibe
On either
with
side.
actors. They're so professional.
Oh,
Most
really?
actors are, oh yeah, oh super professional, and they know it's a job, and they have to be on the money when they get there. So their actors are so inside their head to try to make sure they don't flub lines,
Yeah.
and they're thinking of every possible wink and pause and breath, and they're so busy.
Yeah, I guess
That I haven't.
musicians, the whole sort of theme of live music is it can be a little bit different every time you do it, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter, you know.
Yeah.
Although now with
Well, there's
everyone
some
with an
professionals
iPhone,
that want it to be like exactly the same once they build their show.
yeah,
But I told you the story of George Michael in the last podcast, where he didn't want me to meet him at the show because he was the pop star.
yeah,
He wanted me to meet him at home when he was
just
the
regular
normal
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So I
That's-
thought that was really cool.
that's interesting. I've met some quirky musicians and actors, I guess, in my life, and I don't know. I just think anybody who thinks that they're incredibly special and should be treated different than anybody else annoys me. You know?
Well, I'll tell you what. Right after You People, we're looking at the winter of 2022. I got the call from my gaffer Jared Waldron from Obi-Wan and Iron Man 3, and he goes, "This is your show. I couldn't think of anybody else to do this show because it's 80 for Brady."
Oh, really?
My love of the Patriots and
I didn't know
Tom.
you were a Patriots fan.
Oh yes, well that's because in my youth in Montreal, you get American channels from Burlington, Vermont, or Plattsburgh,
Oh,
New York.
of course. Yeah.
And in
Yeah, I got
Burlington,
Spokane
Vermont.
when I was a kid.
Well, in
Yeah.
Burlington, Vermont, there's only one team they show
Yeah,
every weekend.
yeah.
So from a very young age in the 70s, I was watching the Patriots every weekend.
Oh, I'm sorry for that.
Well, that's okay because in the
It
70s
got good
we,
recently.
we sucked, and then in the 80s we sucked, and then the 90s,
No,
okay,
you still
not
sucked.
bad.
You still
Yeah,
sucked.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this 20-year amazing thing. So yeah, when I got the call to do 80 for Brady, I was like, not only is this like retelling the story of one of the best Super Bowl comeback ever, but it's also Hollywood royalty with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin and Rita Moreno and Sally Fields. I was wondering how that vibe was going to be.
Yeah.
We're asking about prima donnas, and once again, Rita Moreno at 90, Jane at 81. I mean, Sally Fields was 76. Professional, ready to
Really?
go.
Interesting.
Yes, and they had so much fun hamming it up.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the shoot, we got the email. We're going to have Tom for 2 days. No pictures, no autographs. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. And of course, I'm a rebel. So I took my daughter's little Patriots shirt and I took her little Buccaneers shirt and I put them on hangers on my cart. And then I printed 4 pictures, 8.5 by 11, of the two of us cheering for Tom as Patriots fans and Buccaneer fans.
Yeah.
And I remember the first night he was with us, he was in full game mode because he was wearing his Patriots outfit from that Super Bowl against Atlanta.
Yeah.
He had the eye
Yeah.
stuff, right? And they had to recreate sideline moments from that game. So he was in full game mode, and the second AD saw my cart, but he didn't point anything out. And he comes and sees me. He goes, "This is great." He goes, "You should see, there's some crew guys walking around with Philadelphia Eagles shirts just to piss him off. You're a real fan. I'm going to tell him."
Oh,
So
really?
the next morning, it was a completely different vibe because they were shooting the post-credits scene where the four ladies are on lawn chairs enjoying drinks at the beach, and they're all talking to each other, but really they're all talking to Tom. So he was in shorts and T-shirt, really chill. And then the second AD goes, "Hey, Tom, you got a real fan over there." And sure enough, he's coming towards me with a giant smile. And I had a 90-second chat with him. And his entourage was right behind him. Production was right behind him looking at me going, "You bastard, you didn't listen to the memo."
Yeah.
But Tom was
He came
grinning.
to you. Hey,
He
I
was
wasn't
grinning
going
from
after
ear
him. He
to-
came to me.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a tribute.
What was I
like,
going to
"Thank
do?
you."
Say no?
Yeah. And he looks at this and he goes, "Oh my God, how old is your daughter?" And I said, "Well, she's 7 and she already has 4 Super Bowls with you, buddy." And I said, "As you can tell, we would go to the moon and back for you, man, because we've cheered for you as a Pats and
Yeah.
Buccaneers." And he goes, "Do you want me to sign one of her shirts?" And I was like, "Only if it's okay with you, right?" So then I was playing it right. And then he did. He took her Patriots shirt. He signed it for Anya. And it's
That's
in a glass
cool.
case now.
Good for her, man. Well, and guess what? Like, it's not something that got signed by one of these sports selling places that
No,
sells memorabilia
exactly.
and stuff. You got a story behind it. Like, I was recording this film. Like, I'd put a little thing of the film in there or whatever too, into the frame.
I'm so happy.
That's amazing. Yeah,
That
that's
was a great story. And then when the movie came out, I took my daughter to the cast and crew premiere on the Paramount lot. She was so excited.
Your daughter's kind of like Elon's kid. Like, gets taken everywhere.
That's right. Oh, yes. Oh,
Which
yes.
is so
And
cool. Like, that's how I always was with my kid too. Like, if I can go there, he can go there. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
So we
really
had
great.
a fun time. But like I said, the Hollywood royalty, they were so professional. I mean, Rita Moreno fell at one point, knocked her head, and medics came to see her, and she goes, "I'm okay. Let's continue."
That's wild.
90 years old.
Don't
And she
treat
just-
me like an old woman.
Yeah, nailed her scene.
Yeah.
And,
You know what,
was
though?
so
I mean, at the same time, people that are in their 70s and 80s and 90s in acting should really be very kind, because the fact that you can still get a paycheck for doing that in a very young person industry,
that's true.
be grateful, just
absolutely.
behave nicely and be grateful, because like, I pinch myself that I can still work in this industry, because this is now a young people industry, right? And I'm not young
is.
anymore. So, I don't take anything for granted. Like, I realize that at some point somebody's going to outsmart me and knock me off my pedestal, and off I go. But that's a cool story.
Oh, we had fun. I'm kicking myself because on that last day after I met Tom, people were telling me that they were at base camp. They were all throwing the football with Gronk, Edelman, Danny Amendola, and Tom. And I was just waiting for my moment that day. And I'm an idiot. I should have just gone to base camp and throw the football with them, but I did not. I was a respectful crew member.
Well, you were doing
Paid
your
attention
gig,
to the memo.
doing your job.
But here's the cool thing. Right after that, a new gaffer that I've known for a while calls me and he goes, "Hey, you've been on Star Wars before. Do you want to go back? We've got this cool show that two DPs are going to do, 2 cinematographers are going to do. One of them is my good friend Sean Porter. So Scott Todd, the gaffer, and Sean Porter did the Green Book together, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do. That was a great movie.
Oh, man, phenomenal. And Viggo Mortensen is amazing, and I can't pronounce his name. The African American actor was.
Yeah, he was great. He was so good in that movie. Yeah, that was a fantastic
so the
movie.
two of them invite me to go back to Star Wars for Skeleton Crew, which is Goonies in space. It's literally a tribute to Goonies.
Ah,
So I was so excited to go back there. But not only that, we were making this show for our own kids.
Yeah.
It's really geared towards 9 to 12, well, maybe a little older, of course, because Star Wars has always been for anybody from 7 to 77.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was our summer into fall of 20. What was it again? Oh, it was summer 2022 until January 2023. And then the best part is the lightsabers had been modified to even be a way better. So the pixel control had been taken away from me. And it was all in the Arduino chip. And all I had to do was say ignite. And then the whole thing would light up properly. So we didn't have any wireless interference.
Oh, really?
I could change color now. I had a scene to control 6 lightsabers in the opening scene of Skeleton Crew actually, wait a second. I'm mixing the two now. That's not true. That's the opening scene of Obi-Wan where I controlled 6 lightsabers. No pressure there. But in Skeleton Crew, it was different. It was less of a lightsabers situation, more like the usual Star Wars buttons on every door and console. And so that was another phenomenal return to that world.
But the thing about the 6 lightsabers, like, so I guess in a live show, if you screw up, it's recorded in history. That's it. You screwed up.
That's it.
Obviously, in a movie, they're going to redo the shoot if it's bad enough, or fix it in post or whatever.
Well, no, normally we do as many takes as it takes to make the director happy for a particular shot.
But you don't want to be the one causing another take.
Oh, gosh,
right?
You don't. Especially if you're ruining a good actor performance. Because that's
what happens, though? Do you get something through the headset or something like, dickhead, what did you do there? Or something?
Well, most of the time, it's like, that was a bit late or that was a bit early,
Yeah.
So, but luckily, I pride myself on my legendary timing. So,
luckily, I don't screw up very often.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
I had that one moment on Obi-Wan where Ewan McGregor was like, "You're the one? How are you able to figure all this out? Where it turns on and turns off exactly when I think it should." I said, "The force is flowing through us, my friend."
My
I said,
God, that's
I
hilarious.
had a chance to say it, right? I was
Perfect answer.
I know. I was like,
perfect answer.
I said, it kind of helps that I've done some wacky time signatures with a few bands over the years. So,
yeah. Try lighting Dream Theater. This stuff's easy.
I know. Well, I didn't want to make it sound like this is only 1 or 2 cues per shot. When I've got songs that had 140 cues. If I missed one,
and 15 time changes, and
I know, and I kicked myself if I miss one. So it was a good symbiotic relationship there. So
it sounds like everything has just flowed like one to the next, to the next, to the next. Like you haven't been out of work at all.
That was crazy. I'm going to page 2 now where the road bumps started to happen because we knew that the strike was coming.
Oh, the strike, of course. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, COVID really didn't seem to cost you much work. Maybe, a month or 2?
It was 5 months. It was
5 months.
It was from March to August.
Which sounds like a lot until you talk to touring LDs who were 2 years,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty, but at the same time, I felt relieved that I'd started to make the transition at the right time.
Yeah, of course.
But there was a lot of family bonding during the COVID part, which was cool.
Yeah.
I was always gone, I got into excellent physical shape during COVID.
Good for you.
I bought the mirror.
Oh, did you?
Video screen in it, and I was doing yoga every day and stretching.
Good for you. Because people went both directions on that. Like, I know a lot of people who put on 75 pounds.
Oh, I didn't want to do that.
I know people like you and me who really focused on their health.
It's crazy because after being in such great shape during the COVID break, what I just described, when you go from Bullet Train to Obi-Wan to You People to 80 for Brady to Skeleton Crew, my God, I was a mess by that time. Physically, I had neck and shoulder issues that were just like radiating pain everywhere from multiple directions. So I had to figure out at some point I got to take care of myself,
Yeah. Is catering on sets, is it better than more healthy than catering on tours?
Yes. Yeah. They have a good
You would
combo.
think so.
They have a good combo of catering that takes care of the morning breakfast before you start work and lunch.
Yeah.
6 hours later. And
Yeah.
then they also have crafty that keeps you filled up with snacks. And at the 3 hour mark in the morning, you get a sandwiches or something special, and then you have lunch 3 hours later, and then you have another snack 3 hours later, and then if you go deep, there's a second meal that comes in at the
But
12
usually
hour
it's
mark.
healthier though, right? Like it's not hamburgers and pizza.
I'll just call it the same as I always do. There's always some kind of swimming chicken, and there's
Yeah.
some kind of cow, and some
Yeah.
kind of fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's yeah. You just have to be. There's a lot of self-control that
Disciplined.
gets
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Disciplined. Don't just
And
eat
I've
pizza because
chosen
it
to
tastes
eat
good.
less and less every day
Yeah.
as the day progresses. So
Yeah.
my main meal is the morning meal.
Well,
And then
I
taper
always
down.
struggled with races when I was at races because Jeremy was racing on teams and the teams had catering, plus they'd always have snacks out, right? So every time I'd walk by a bowl, I'd grab one of those
Crazy.
things that it basically fakes being healthy, you know, the little protein
Yes.
bars or whatever they are in the little package. So I'd eat 4 of those in a day, and then lunch you'd take 2 portions because why not? It tasted pretty good, and
there.
I might not have dinner, and then you go out for a big dinner with the team, and so yeah, I mean, I put on weight when I was at races because I was just eating crap all day, plus the stress, plus the lack of sleep.
That's right.
You
You gotta
know,
pace yourself.
plus a few beers or something at some point of the day. Like if you win anything, everybody cracks out a beer or something. So, so yeah, you got to watch your health.
I know, but I've been lucky because recently I've discovered that if I have a really awesome acai bowl with fruit in the morning, that sets the day.
Yeah, yeah,
It's really healthy.
yeah. We're the same. My girlfriend and I, we're either a smoothie or, like a couple of poached eggs or something, but always like some fruit and always spinach or something. You know, it's like just trying to be better. You don't have to be perfect,
Yes.
just be better.
That's right.
Yeah.
But anyway, right after Skeleton Crew, you're right. I just kept going because there was a phenomenal invite from Chris Colleton, another gaffer that I worked with before on Call of the Wild with Janusz Kaminski. But this was a different cinematographer, Paula Huidobro, and they invited me to control everything in the White House for a beautiful murder mystery featuring Detective Cordelia Cupp in the recently released show called The Residents on Netflix. I don't know if
Oh, really? No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so that one is fun because it's kind of a Knives Out approach, kind of a tongue-in-cheek comedy. But at
Interesting.
the same time, it's pretty serious because the head usher of the White House gets murdered on the night of an Australian state dinner. And so there's a running joke that Hugh Jackman keeps the guests entertained by giving them dance lessons, and
Oh God.
Kylie Minogue is there singing the same song 7 fucking times.
Oh my God.
But it's just so funny, and we shot the first 4 episodes in the early part of 2023, clearly knowing that there was a freight train smashing into a strike wall at some point in early summer.
Yeah.
So they had it figured out in blocks. Block 1 was going to be episodes 1 through 4. And then they knew there would be a pause during the strike, and then hopefully we'd be coming back and shooting episode 5 through 8 right after. That was wild. We had 7 stages at MBS Raleigh, which is across the street from Paramount Studios on Melrose. And our gaffer, Chris Colleton, designed the rig on every stage with 16-foot walls. So we had to have green beds built, which are basically walkways right above the set walls. And then lights would be anchored off the green beds. We had 1,750 smart lights. We're talking sky panels, vortexes from Cream Source, Pro Lights knockoff of a sky panel. Lights everywhere. But once again, because the Hog is such a great system with port numbers, where the HPUs are in every stage, they're feeding their own streaming ACN for that stage, but HogNet is interconnected So that way, no matter where I am on the lot, I can turn on a light on stage 11. I can turn on a light on stage 7. Doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And of course, my cart moves with the company. So when we shoot, I'm stuck on the same stage that we're shooting. And then my rigging programmer, who was chalky, is able to deal with all the other stages at the same time. So it was great because we had a lot of tours. Our UPM, Mary D. Howard, was so proud of showing her sets to a lot of shows to possibly buy them at the end.
What's a UPM?
Unit production manager.
Oh, okay.
And Mary D. Howard is a legend in my book because when I was growing up, right before I started, well, actually, as I was starting to tour in the late 80s, early 90s, my favorite show was Star Trek The Next Generation. And she was the first AD, first assistant director on season 1, and she finished as the unit production manager by the end of the series.
Wow.
7 years later. And then she also became the unit production manager for Voyager and Enterprise. So her legacy in the Star Trek world, Star Trek.
Yeah, careful there, mister.
Yeah, is 17 years. And then after that, she became an independent producer and landed with Shondaland Productions, Shonda Rhimes. And then eventually she was spearheading The Residents for Netflix.
You're pretty good at remembering some complicated names.
I am.
Names, like some of the names are very foreign and stuff, and you're just remembering all these really long
I did
names
write it down
and
just
stuff.
to make sure that I didn't look like a complete goof. But it was really cool to meet Mary, and she is one of the good ones where there's no lying, there's no stretching the truth. She cares about the crew. And she was falling apart when the writers went on strike first, and we were told by the studio to keep shooting without our showrunner, who wrote the show. And it was towards the end of episode 4, so we were kind of chugging along as much as possible, knowing that the actors would go out at the end of the month. And then at one point, she had to tell the crew and the cast that Netflix had pulled the plug, and we had to go on a hiatus. And she cried. And at first you're wondering, she's just putting on a show for? No, it was completely legit and heartfelt. We could tell that she really cared.
So she was crying because she had to send everyone home, or because she was going to be out of work, or all of the above?
No. It was the sad part of, like, we did everything we could to keep shooting because the scripts were stamped as completed. So we were able to shoot episode 4 without our head writer because he was home.
Right.
And which is weird because showrunners also wear a producer hat. So Netflix was in conflict where they were like, we need your producer input, but because you're the creator and you wrote it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like, no, I can't. So.
Is that because everyone's in different unions and stuff, or is it just
absolutely.
Politics?
Yeah.
Or
well, the showrunner is definitely in the Writers Guild.
Yeah,
and then he's also a PGA member, a Producers Guild member, because as a showrunner, you get 2 titles. You're writing it and you're also producing it.
Huh.
So it was kind of weird towards the end there. We could tell that the machine was kind of like missing his input because it's his baby, right?
Yeah.
And so we went home end of May 2023, and pretty much June to October gave me a chance to fix my body because, like I said, I was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And it's good because I found a chiropractor who was also a licensed acupuncturist, and by seeing him regularly, I was able to just finally. It took a good 8 weeks to take away a spasm that was lodged between my shoulder blade and my heart. Really good place to have a spasm.
Yuck. Yeah.
Just a
feels just like a heart attack. Yeah.
I know. Burning sensation. You're wondering, is this going to spike at some point?
Yeah. Is this it?
So that's what I did during the strike, is really take care of myself. So, because I knew that when it would end, it would be gangbusters. But it's so strange how it really wasn't that gangbusters, because that's when we realized that the industry had left LA again
Yeah.
for better tax credits worldwide.
So really, the industry thinned out in LA a bit,
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
lot?
By the time the strikes ended and we went back to work, well, I was lucky because I had Residence episode 5 through 8 to shoot right away. So we brought our gear back in, our control equipment back into Raleigh MBS in November, and then we did a few days of shooting before, and then the sad part, oh my God, right before we started shooting, we found out that one of our actors passed away, Andre Brower.
Jesus.
Phenomenal actor. Everybody loved him so much. And he was our head usher who gets murdered.
Oh my God.
So all the flashbacks had
So
to
did
be
you have to reshoot a bunch of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, so what they did is they asked one of the top actors in the business, Giancarlo Esposito, to take over the role of A.B. Winter. And he knew Andre Brower. And so it's a big thing for him to pick up the legacy of Andre.
Right.
And so what he did, we shot episode 5 through 8 with him. And at the end, we had an extra 3 weeks to reshoot his parts for episode 1 through 4.
Wow.
So that carried us till May of 2024.
And then the strike ended.
Well, the strike
Or
ended.
no, the strike was over
in November.
So
yeah.
so then other things happened, or
Well, then it was dead.
really?
It was Los Angeles was a ghost town.
Huh.
And I'm proactive. I reach out to people. And I reached out to a gaffer that I had met 7 years before at the end of Captain Marvel. His name is Walter Bithell. Thank you, Walter. I knew Walter was about to start season 4 of The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
At Sony. I seem to spend a lot of time at Sony.
Yeah.
In Culver City. So I reached out to Walter and I said, hey, Walter,
I'm available.
we've wanted to work together since Captain Marvel. I'm available. Can I potentially be your programmer on The Morning Show? And he answered me, I would walk on broken glass if you could do this show with me. Because it turns out that it's been a little tough for Morning Show crews over the years. But it's a wonderful experience. Once you're on set with the cast and everything, we have fun. And it was a great experience. So I'm lucky. I count my lucky stars every day.
Yeah.
Because in June of 2024, I had a job.
Yeah.
Until December.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was most of my year last year. And then you know how it goes, right? Once you're with a new crew and a new gaffer, then he wants to keep going. So as soon as we wrap that, his other DP, Yo Willems, who's famous for, see, I knew I would forget something at some point. Jennifer, the world where you're, the Hunger Games. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello,
I
I
never
just
saw
came
any
back
of
to
it,
the
so
world.
I wouldn't know.
Okay. But anyway, Yo Willems and Walt Bithell were the Hunger Games crew in the heyday of that show. So he calls, Walt goes, right after the Morning Show last year, he goes, Yo has a small project that's going to shoot right before and after the holidays. And it's a remake of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And I was like,
Great movie.
Great movie. How are they going to approach
Scared
this?
the living shit out of me, but great
There you go.
movie.
And he
yeah,
goes,
imagine being a nanny applying for gigs after that movie. Like our nanny, we put her through the ringer. It was like,
we only
wait
have
a second.
about 64 questions. For
Yeah,
you.
right. And then we need you to live with us for a month before we actually hire you.
That's right. Well, Walt surprised me. He goes, this is a small movie, independent movie. We're going to have to work for less than scale. I hope it's okay. But it keeps us busy over the holidays. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the actress. And I was like, oh, my God, Ewan McGregor's wife.
Oh, really?
I'm going to work with Harrison Dula from Ahsoka. She's in Star Wars as well. And she's a great actress.
Yeah.
And so we rolled right onto that. And it was in L.A. Mind you, I had to drive to Pomona for the first few weeks. That was almost an hour both ways.
No, no.
Just, I know, it's not fun in traffic, LA traffic.
Yeah.
But eventually we parked at this house in Studio City for like 3.5 weeks, almost 4 weeks. And now it's 20 minutes from my house. So,
Ah, cool. Yeah.
so that was pretty cool. And then that wrapped. And then Walt was like, hey, we're going back with David Lanzenberg from the morning show. He's got reshoots for another slasher called I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, my goodness.
So we just did that briefly. It was like a 3.5 week reshoot. And then all of a sudden, the shows ended. And now I've been picking up commercials and a few things here and there. And
Is that the hardest part of your gig? Just the hustle in between stuff, like making sure your calendar's full?
Yeah, well, luckily, my Rolodex exploded. Rolodex, it's so old. But my phone contacts exploded when I joined the Hollywood local of set lighting in 2010.
Yeah.
And the idea is that as a programmer, it'd be great if I could stay with only one crew.
Yeah.
But then there's these pauses in between, right, where
Yeah.
I just got to keep it going. So sometimes
Yeah, well, it's
we're
like
more
touring for one band, unless it's Coldplay, who tours all year, every year. But, other than that, like touring with one band, you'd starve to death.
Oh my gosh, that's why I was so lucky in those touring days where I was juggling at least 2 every year.
Yeah. Well, look at, one of the miracles of modern life is Cosmo, because it was like he had Aerosmith, AC/DC, Judas Priest, and I think there was one other one in there. And they the tours never overlapped. It was always like one ends,
feeling that
2 weeks later, the next one starts,
I had a sneaky feeling that management somehow talked to each other to make sure Cosmo.
I don't know. It just seemed to always work out. And
the wildest one for me, didn't I tell you this on the last podcast that we did? The wildest one was when Michael Lippman organized a Rob Thomas solo tour and the George Michael Australian dates around my schedule so that I could do both.
Wow, that's amazing. That's big. You've kind of done some things right when people are willing to do that.
I was freaking out because I was never a part of one camp.
Yeah.
Because I was always flying to the next one. So I was on my own going, am I going to the right place today?
Yeah. Wild. Let me ask you this. Crazy. Is there like a ladder in your world, like where, when you're a lighting programmer on tour, you want to eventually become the lighting director, and then you want to become the lighting designer, and then you might want to become the lighting designer who doesn't direct, who gets to go home right after it is done, and you just come out every once in a while like a rock star and just make sure the rig still looks good or whatever, right? So is there like is your next step to become a gaffer or something, or?
Oh, well, I think my time has passed on taking big responsibilities in the motion picture industry, even though as a key lighting programmer on big shows.
Yeah.
I have sometimes about 25 people that are directly under my supervision to make sure that by the time I show up on the new set of the day, that everything is ready.
Yeah.
And I that's why I make these long Facebook posts sometimes to show that I can't do what I can do without so many different people. And it starts with the rigging programmer most of the time, because if I didn't have a rigging programmer, there's no way I'm allowed to work more than 12 to 14 hours a day. So how can the other stuff get done for tomorrow's work, right? So it starts with a good rigging programmer. And then after that, it's what we call lighting control network utility technicians who understand data management of the 21st century, because in the old days, they just had a few universes and they used opti-splitters and 5-pin cable.
Yeah.
Well, try to do that with 36 universes. I've got a photo somewhere of a data table that has 36 optis that are receiving 5-pin from DP8000s, I guess. And then it's just a spider web of freaking 5-pins going everywhere in the perms. What if you have a problem? How do you troubleshoot that? So I want to say that around the time that we did Captain Marvel, which was in 2018, is when we all decided, wait a second, let's just use the ArtNet port of an HPU or rack hog or whatever, and then we eventually switched to ACN, and then just run single lines of Cat6 everywhere to
Yeah.
nodes, and then transform it at the last possible moment to 5-pin before the light. But that takes what we call skilled labor. And that's people who take the time to take our classes that our local teaches every month or every couple months, because we have a phenomenal director of safety training, Alan Rowe, at Local 728. And he always makes sure that he gives basic console classes, basic networking classes, and then the advanced classes, so that crew members have the opportunity to learn these high skills of networking, of why do we do static IP versus the HCP? Why do we, what's the difference between HogNet and FixtureNet? What's, all that kind of stuff that the old school technician that was used to taking a 100 amp, plugging it into a distro and flicking the light on, well, that's not that anymore, because now all our lights have computers in them. Vortex,
Well,
sky
we've gone from sort of a generalist to a specialist sort
right.
of thing on shows at least.
Yeah.
You have a lot more people who are specialists now, as opposed to, hey, go over there and grab that thing, and like, I mean, everyone kind of knew everything. Like, one day you were a lighting guy, the next day you were front of house audio, the next day you were the production
that doesn't
manager.
work in Hollywood.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, that's the only place in North America where we have specific unions for every trade. Whereas everywhere else in North America, it's multi-trade, single locals.
So, I was asking you, like, can you move sort of up the ladder?
Oh, yes.
But, you've obviously sort of risen to the top of the food chain as far as lighting programmers are concerned. Like, you get very, very good stuff thrown at you, and you're trusted to do those shows and stuff. So how do you expand in that role? Like, can you demand more money, or does the union dictate how much money you're allowed to make?
Well, scale is always the minimum that you should be paid.
Okay.
For your position, and then it's up to you to see if you can negotiate above scale.
Right.
Based
Okay.
on the scope of work.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to have lighting components thrown at me from, main unit, rigging, costumes, prop, and fixtures as well, because there's a small sub-department of lighting called fixtures, and those guys on a Star Wars show, they're in charge of wiring every single button you see on a door or on a console, and every single one has to have a number.
Yeah.
Because if the director goes, that blue one, that's the one he's going to push, and when he pushes it, it's got to go off.
Huh.
So all those buttons have to have a number, which means at that point, I need to have plot views in my consoles of every button, right?
So it's a little complicated.
It gets really complicated. And if I didn't have that support from the rigging programmer and all the lighting control utility technicians, I would show up in deep shit every morning. So,
Yeah.
So it's great to be in charge, because I'm the one who lays down the Bible of do this way, do this way, but don't do that, but don't do that. I've got like 100 things.
So you can command more money. Basically, like somebody who is just breaking into this from being a nightclub light jockey or something, and he happens to know how to run a hog really well, he could get in and join the union and eventually get put on to some B show or something and work his way up a little bit, but he's going to make a lot less money than you are. So I was hopeful that you would say that, because I just thought you were going out, with your lunchbox and making the exact same wage that some schmuck was making.
You could kind
I
of
don't know how unions work really. So
you could just ask for a percentage above scale, but then there's also the fact that I rent my equipment.
That was the other thing I was going to ask you. Are the consoles that you use yours?
Oh yes, I've invested in 7 HPUs and my current full bore 4.
Yeah.
And then I have a smaller rig when it's time to go in a car process situation, just to make it smaller.
Yeah.
But then I get to rent that back to production as a business entity. They always try to say, "Oh, that's a box rental on your paycheck." No.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one touching it. There's going to be other crew members that are going to touch it. So you're going to insure it, and you're
Oh,
going
is
to
that
pay
how
my
that
business
works?
for it. Oh yeah,
So if you're just using it as a tool, a box rental or whatever it's called,
yeah,
then it's your problem.
that's right.
Ah, I see. Nice little
Yeah,
snag.
yes,
Good find on that one.
that's right.
So do
So
you have?
yes, no, it's been great that I know that I've found my place. I mean, many years ago, if I hadn't taken a left turn and toured for 27 years, maybe I would be a cinematographer. But do I
Yeah,
want to be a cinematographer at 55? No, because or 56
56.
today. Damn it. Um,
I had to correct you.
yeah, the director of photography, cinematographer. That's the same position, right? DPs. That's a tough life because they have 6 months of prep for a project where they just constantly talk about the look of the show and the motivation as to why the lighting is going to be like this in this particular scene versus that scene. Is it day? Is it night? Blah blah blah. But then they shoot for 4 months, and then they're supposed to go into the post production session to color time every scene so that they all have a stylistic look. Whew, most DPs have no life. They just constantly are working on that stuff, and it affects their family life a little bit. It's a tough job. It's a tough job to be a cinematographer
I get
because
it.
you're thinking of lighting. You're also thinking of camera placement and camera moves and composition and all that stuff. So I'd love to do that, but maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard
And
to
as a
think
gaffer,
about like
yeah,
big career changes like that when you're although, you keep hearing stories about people who made most of their money after 60 or after 70
that's
or
true. That's
like
true.
some of these guys,
Well, it's experience. You bring experience, and you also bring a
yeah.
guarantee that you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the old days, imagine the old days of movie making when it was on film, right? And film cost a fair amount of money. And you couldn't shoot for hours because the producer told you how many reels you had, and you had to shoot within those reels. There were probably 10 DPs worldwide that would guarantee you a movie.
Yeah.
Now, because it's digital, and then the cards record like an hour and a half of material before you switch the card, there's thousands of DPs out there because they
True
set a
story,
look,
yeah.
they see it right away, they have a vision in their mind, and it's a tough world, especially now that there's so many crew members that can deliver a movie, but they're all being shot elsewhere.
Yeah. Do you lose any sleep over AI?
I try not to. I try not to worry about it because I feel like until I can see a soul in those eyes, I'm not worried. Because right now, everything I see is wonderful eye candy. There's no soul in those people that are generated by AI.
How much have you watched though? Because some of it's getting pretty damn good.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to
Yeah.
be. It's going to. Yeah. Well, that's why the strikes were important for the writers and the actors to make sure that they wouldn't get um, replaced by AI.
Yeah.
And so
And
I think
they probably will. Just like every other role in the world is not necessarily going to be replaced right away, but certainly augmented. Maybe like the main actors will still be the main actors, but the secondary ones will be AI or
Well, but how
maybe
can the actor relate to somebody that's not there? You know, there's that whole relationship thing about the actor.
it's the whole metaverse, my friend. It's you make
See,
them there. Yeah.
It wasn't AI, but you've seen all the shows recently where they de-age actors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they did a great job on Harrison Ford in the last Indiana Jones. They did great on Samuel L. Jackson and Captain
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And if they're using AI for that kind of stuff, that's cool because it's still the real performance, and then the face is de-aged.
Yeah.
But to tell me that I'm gonna like Robert Downey Jr. is ready to sue anybody into oblivion for using his likeness after he dies. He's got it all in place where
Yeah.
nobody's going to be able to use his likeness after he's gone.
Yeah, but what if that were to flip, where somebody comes and makes a deal with him and says, "We'll pay your family X amount of money for allowing us to keep doing Iron Man movies, for the next 50 years."
He
And
doesn't want to.
most people will. Most people will. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you license, your future likelihood?
Yeah, but the thing is,
or
at the
likeness?
end of the day, it's not them. It's a new version of them. That's not
But that's
their
the whole
soul.
world
It's
right
not-
now.
Oh, God.
You and I are old, so we
I
don't
hate it.
necessarily get it, but kids do. Like Kiss is going to go on for 100 years, and a lot of things are going to go on. There's going to be a new Godfather with, the original actors in it, I mean, it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. This is the new I'm not advocating for it.
No, I
I'm
know.
just saying, you can nay it away. It isn't going. This is happening. It's all happening right now. Like, have you been in
Still-
a
I
car
still-
without a steering wheel yet? A Waymo without a steering wheel?
Well, the steering wheel is there.
Well, no, they have them now without them. They have Teslas now without steering wheels in them. No steering wheels, nothing.
No, I
And-
like Waymo. Waymo's cool because there is a museum here in LA called the Peterson
Yeah,
Automobile
I've been there.
Museum. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And on the second floor, they have the all the future technology and the concept cars and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And recently, they did 3 massive booths to explain Waymo.
Oh, really?
And it's so well done because
Huh.
it shows you what Waymo sees as far as LiDAR and infrared, night vision. It sees so much compared to the joke.
Yeah, well, and people still want to trust like an old lady with, 2 martinis in her over, some AI computer created by Elon's team or whatever, like it. I think self-driving is going to save a lot of human lives.
I'll tell you when that does. It will when all the cars talk to each other. If it's just
True.
the Waymos and the Teslas, no, it's not going to work. Every car has
Yeah,
to be
true.
on the same network.
True.
And at that point, nobody's going to own cars anymore. They're going to be on the street, parked.
Well,
and then
that's-
you're just
that's
gonna
the
go,
future.
I want to go here.
Yeah, no, that's the future. That's
Well,
absolutely the
Isaac
future.
Asimov saw it. Philip K. Dick saw it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Uber was originally sort of designed without drivers, or at least that was part of the thought, was that we won't have drivers. This is just going to connect sort of these point-to-point vehicles. And, but yeah, some of it really excites me. Some of it scares the hell out of me. It's,
Well, because we're careening towards all the scenarios that we've seen, whether it's Terminator or
of course.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's all the
James
shows, the
Cameron
Jetsons.
himself. James Cameron himself right now said it in a documentary. I can't remember which one, but he said it's really getting hard to write science fiction because we're here.
Yeah, it's science real. It's science
Yeah,
nonfiction
we're-
now.
We're here now.
Yeah. Isn't it wild,
But
though, how fast it happened?
I know the kids these days will watch all kinds of scrolling nonsense and all that stuff, but God damn it, I hope they see right through a soulless AI character.
They won't. They won't. They won't. They already
sad.
spend all day scrolling AI, posts on TikTok.
That's on us. That's on us then to keep bringing our kids to the movie theater.
Well, good
I've
for
done
you for
everything
doing
I
that.
can.
No, good for you for doing that. I do the same with my kid, like real music, real stuff, real whatever, right? Like, it's why some of these changes that are happening in the world bother me a little bit because, like, for example, Canada, Canadian culture is dead. Like, I spend 6 months a year in Canada and I don't recognize it. And it's only an hour away from where I grew up, but I don't recognize it. I live in Canmore when I'm up there. And I just don't even recognize Canmore is the same because it's a little town, but Calgary, forget it. Like, I don't recognize Calgary, and it's because, I don't want to get into it, but it's because of a lot of things. It's because of primarily one big thing, but so that's kind of sad.
I can't tell you how much I enjoyed living in Calgary.
It's a fantastic city that's sadly changing a little too rapidly right now.
The food was so good.
Yeah.
There was so much.
You know what? Canmore's a
diversity.
tiny little town, but the food's incredible. Banff has great food too.
Yeah,
More
that's right.
expensive because Banff is another notch up on the tourism stuff.
And
But
then if you go to Lake Louise, even
Lake Louise there's a small hotel in Lake Louise. If you go back there, there's a hotel called the Post in Lake
that's where
Louise.
we stayed. My family came during the
The wine
Ghostbusters
list in the
shoot.
restaurant, I can't remember exactly. I think it's the second largest wine list in Canada. That little restaurant is the second. I toured that cellar a couple times, the wine cellar. It's remarkable. I never seen anything like
I
it.
missed that. But
You
my
can
family,
ask them to show
my
it to
daughter
you,
and
and
my
they'll show
wife
you.
came in August
That's
2019
nice.
when we were shooting Ghostbusters, and we rented. Well, we booked a room at the Post. That was not cheap.
No,
And
way worse now.
but yeah, we had such a great day because when we woke up, it was raining. So my wife and daughter goes, "Oh, our day is ruined." I said, "We're going to Lake Louise. That's above the clouds."
Yeah,
And so we just went up there, and it was just breaking in the morning.
yeah.
And my daughter didn't have gloves, so we waited until the gift shop opened, and all they had were socks. So in all the pictures, she's wearing socks.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
I was first in line, and I rented the damn canoe, and the two of us went
Good for you.
canoed on Lake
Well, the
Louise.
other thing you can do horseback around the
right.
trails on the side of it. You can do all kinds of things. I've done sleigh rides in the summer across the lake. It's a beautiful place. It's amazing. Again, all of those places are changing, and it's just because of the way the population is shaping up. And like now you have to pay for parking at Lake Louise. I never had to pay for parking my whole life, but the last few years you got to pay for parking, and you can only
amount
go
of tourism
certain
that
places.
goes there, it's crazy
insane.
how many
It's
people they can
wild
turn
now. It is wild how crazy. Well, even in Canmore, like some of the popular little trails that when people come up to visit and they're not like avid hikers, I'll take them on the popular, beautiful, like with the big win at the end, the big aha moment at the end, and you can't even get in the parking lots. Like they're so full. Fortunately, there's some that you can walk to from my house or ride a bike to. But yeah, it's wild. It's so crowded. I had touring. Never again, or never know, or
I'll tell you what happened. Like I said, I was designing Matchbox's next tour right before COVID shut us down. And I don't want to get into some nasty politics, but I already had a bad taste in my mouth about where everything was in the touring world since I started right at the tail end of the 80s,
yeah,
where when you toured, you would have local promoters in every town that cared about their town, cared about their venue, and cared about the artists that they booked into those venues. So if you went to the Riverport Amphitheater in St. Louis, you knew that Suni would be there.
mm-hmm.
Amazing guy. And I saw it in the mid to late 90s when Clear Channel appeared out of nowhere, started scooping venues, turned into Live Nation. I'm sorry, but that's
No
when
need to apologize.
everything changed. And then
Yeah.
and you have to understand, I had a plan to transition during my George Michael experience from '06 to 2012.
If I just clipped that little segment and put it out as a short on the internet, I had a chance to transition while I was with George Michael from.
Well, I'll
People
tell you
would
why.
read that completely differently.
I know, but it's because when you climb the mountaintop,
Yeah.
right? All my career was about being the guy that would tour with a big band or a big artist in stadiums worldwide. Well, I did that. I was able to finally accomplish that with Metallica and George.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the boss on Metallica, but I technically was the boss on George. He was the boss, and he was the best boss I've ever had.
Yeah.
But then I had the realization of two things. I don't have a kid yet. I'm over 40. And if I don't get off the bus, I'll be 60 with no kid and probably no wife.
Yeah.
So I had to make a decision. And it was the best decision I took because I also decided I have the chops to switch to movies. And and then the union, the best medical package in the U.S. as far as I'm concerned. And it helped us with the pregnancy, and it was amazing. It was the
Yeah.
right call. It was the
Yeah.
right call because I made it to the mountaintop in the touring world. And if I had a transporter, just like Star Trek, that would beam me to the venue before I call house lights, do the show, call house lights, beam back to my living room, I'd keep touring.
Pretty much what I say every time someone invites me to a show. I'm like, send a helicopter to my house, pick me up, take me to front of house. I'll watch the show, give you a big hug, and then they take me back home again. I don't have to deal with parking. I don't have to deal with politics or bullshit
That's
or people
right.
spilling beer on me or anything. And
There was a 5-year break between the last George Michael tour and my last tour with Matchbox in 2017, and then I designed Rob's solo tour in 2019. But for financial reasons, it was better to have someone else
yeah,
go out. I could tell that kind of vibe was coming to a close,
yeah,
especially because after COVID, Matchbox kept rescheduling every year,
yeah,
every year for different reasons that I don't want to get into. And eventually, we went through what I've done since COVID.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
knee deep in so many massive projects. At some point, the
Why would you
schedules
even
didn't
think of
make
it?
sense.
Yeah,
And to be honest, Michael Lippman, great manager. I love him. He gave me a 20-year run with Matchbox, Rob, and George. His time was also coming to an end because of his age and his health. And so at some point, it made sense for Matchbox to look somewhere else, because I can see how those guys felt not forced to use me, but Michael was the one saying Benoit's available. He's gonna do something. So I was so happy when the schedules didn't make sense, and I was sad that my time with them was over. And then all of a sudden, I heard Sooner was doing it, and I was like,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
set. They're
yeah,
gonna be great.
yeah,
So at that point, it was the door on touring closed, and guess what? During the strikes of the union, I felt like an ass, because I was like, do I really go back on the road during the strike? No, I'm physically not in a good place right now. I better take this time to
get
get better.
healthy. Yeah,
And plus, I don't know anybody anymore on the touring world. All my old contacts are retired, um, or not in the game anymore, or whatever. And so, what am I going to do? Sell myself on something that I did 10 years ago? I'm not current.
yeah.
It's over, and I don't care.
So if you got a call
it's
though, if you got a call, come design for us, and
yes,
we
yes,
want you out for the
yes.
first.
That's a different thing. That's a
Yeah,
different thing, because I still have the chops, and I
yeah,
just proved it to myself a few weeks ago.
yeah.
Because another friend of mine, Chuck Ozeas, a really cool DP, who I did 4 Carrie Underwood Sunday Night Football intros with.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, as soon as Carrie began, it was the summer of 2013. It was her first year for that season, and Chuck had done a few music videos with Carrie, and he was hired to be the DP for the Sunday Night Football intro. And so he called me and he goes, I have no idea what to do for rock and roll design. Can you do it? And I was like, absolutely. I'm in New York right now on Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I'll design it and I'll come right on time to shoot it with you. And so it turned into 4 out of 5 years. Great partnership. But then, my gosh, so that was 2018 maybe? Yeah, the last time we did it. And then it took until this year where he called me and he goes, I've got something cool that I really need your help on. I can't say it's for a mouse entertainment company.
Yeah.
I signed an NDA on that. It'll come out next year, so we'll have a chat on podcast 3.
Cool.
But the cool thing is, I was so proud of Chuck, because in that time span since we did those Carrie Underwood intros, he got an interest in designing rock and roll rigs. And he actually delivered a design to me for this little project we did 3 weeks ago.
That's cool.
and all I had to do was be the lighting director and programmer for him. And I used L8 at home to put it in previs, and then I did my usual thing. First pass of every song, 5 hours.
Yeah.
That's if you want something that's going to be unique to that song, with specific lighting gags that you won't see again.
Yeah.
Well, you got to take time. You got to
Yeah.
take the time, especially because we had magic panels and all, and so
For now,
I
until
can't-
AI does it, and then
Oh
it
yeah,
won't
that
take
little
any time at
box,
all.
that little box they sell there.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I spent 40 hours on 8 songs, and I delivered
Wow.
them to a beautiful soundstage in LA at LA Center, and they had a volume, which is the new way of shooting cool shows now, where it's a curved video screen and a ceiling of video, and the cameras track their position so that when they move, the video kind of moves with it, so that the perspective doesn't change on the lens.
Interesting.
And we shot 8 songs of a cool project that's going to come out soon, and we made them look like they were in 8 different cities
That's awesome.
with a big rock show. So, and then everybody was giving me props for the programming that I did. And yes, so I still have it. And if anybody wants to hire
And
me,
you'd still enjoy it. You'd still enjoy it, other than all the
Oh, yeah.
bullshit. Like, you know, you could probably do
Yeah.
without the bullshit at this point
Well,
because you're
I-
gainfully
that's-
employed doing other things anyways. So
yes. Well, the weird one to me in 2017 was when the Live Nation rep was on the tour bus with the tour manager and the production manager, and you could tell that they had more power than the actual production.
yeah,
I've heard horror stories now that some production managers get fired if they don't follow the rules.
ugh, yeah,
So
yucky.
it's not the type of environment that I want to be in.
Well, you'd be surprised how many of my guests on this podcast that I talk to off the air after the recording who say, you know, fuck this industry. I'm so done with it. You know, I mean, just stuff like what you're talking about, but a lot more honestly off the air, obviously. And I get it. I mean, I get it. There's certainly a lot about the sort of corporatization of the industry that's been very good. And then there's a lot that hasn't been so good.
Well,
And
if they own that much of it,
yeah.
why is there no organization against them?
You know, it's funny because I was having dinner with, and I won't say who it was, but let's say he was a pretty high up person from, let's call it one of the largest, promoters out there. Perhaps, a couple of initials could let you figure out who they are, and they're in a little bit of trouble for a monopoly. They're being accused of a monopoly. And he goes, Marcel, this is, because I asked him, I said, hey, how's that going? Is there a lot of heat on you right now? And he goes, oh, no, man. And I said, well, what do you mean no? And he goes, well, it's just a bunch of bullshit. It's just the government throwing shit around. And it's
the administration change too.
It's so far from being true. And I said, well, let me get this straight. So you own the venues, you own the tickets, you own the artist contracts. Like, you own every part of this.
and you manage some of them.
And it's not a monopoly.
Give me a
Like,
break.
seriously?
Give me a
And
break.
he's like, wow, you're oversimplifying it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But, hey, they got away with it for this long. Let's see if they continue to. I don't know. Like, what do I know?
Yeah, it's not the vibe that I grew up in. Because I
No.
love that vibe of local promoters. I told you that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know
so
a couple
cool.
local promoters who are just getting crushed right now between, like down here in South Florida, the other problem you have is the Indian tribe who own the Hard Rock down here. They're bringing in every sort of B-level artist and overpaying them, and they're blocking them from playing any venue within a certain number of miles, which kills Palm Beach, it kills Fort Lauderdale, it kills Miami, and so they're basically blocked from playing anywhere else in South Florida, and they'll do like these long-term agreements where we'll lock you in for 3 years or 5 years or something. And so these promoters who have small venues or medium-sized venues, they're struggling to put artists in them right now. It's crazy. It really is crazy. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no doubt that I would always entertain anybody who respects the body of work that I was able to accomplish over the
well,
years.
you're just a good dude. You know, you're not
Oh, thank you.
semi-retarded like a lot of the people that might be out there working right now. I don't know. But
Well, there's the other thing too about the fact that I prided myself in playing live. We talked about that on the past podcast. So whenever time code is a prerequisite, I see. I mean, I go to a fair amount of shows, and there's nothing that bothers me more than seeing the time code window open on an entire screen of the Grand MA or whatever console they're using.
yeah,
And the guy is standing there with his arms crossed.
yeah. Or he's having a drink with the guests at front of house, you know?
It's okay because that means that the lighting designer's vision was captured, recorded,
Yeah.
and it's being played back the same way every night. I understand that. There's a value to that part. But what about the lighting artists, like, you know, old school lighting artists, John Broderick? We talked about all
Jason Bullock, you know, doing all the rocking out at the desk, you know?
Mark Brickman in his heyday.
Mark Brickman, did you see the recent thing he did with David Gilmour, where he played the lights on the screen with the stylus? Mark
cool.
said to me, I think on this podcast, he said, "You know what? I decided that if this is going to be my last gig, I'm running the lights live. There will be zero time code. I am controlling the lights during the show, period."
Yeah. But I understand why they do that, because they don't want to hire a very expensive lighting director or keep the designer on the road because he's famous for his manual operation.
Yeah.
Just record it, and then let's get some younger, cheaper person to just babysit it. But
I think some of it's even, you know, the artist heard that through the grapevine that somebody was using time code, and they're like, I want to use time code because, you know, Beyonce's using time code. I want to use time code. And
okay. I mean,
sometimes
George
it's
asked
that.
George asked me in '07 to use time code, but it's so funny how he brought it up. He goes, "Don't get me wrong, Benoit. Your timing is really good.
Yeah.
But if you could record a few things, you would find that you could layer a bunch of stuff, and then you could operate on top of that."
That's a good point.
I said, "Great point, George." So sure enough, because I've been working with time code for years, I remember starting at high end in '94, and Tim Grievous, the first thing he goes, "You got to learn SAM software, time code operation. All our demos are automated."
Yeah.
So he put me in that world back in '94. So in '07, when George asked me, I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So I had a Pro Tools mini rig, and I was able to program all the. It was cool because I was able to program 4 on the floor, perfectly timed. But I did have a discussion with him about distance, because I said, as you know, sound travels a lot less slower than lighting. So we have to time align the light show somewhere in the room.
Yeah.
If we time align it with you on stage, you're going to have the best time of your life because it's going to be right on the money. But by the time you get to front of house, it's going to be so early. And then at the back of the house, it's going to be almost a 3/4 of a second early.
Yeah.
And I said, we're about to play in stadiums next year. That's even going to be bigger. So George was like, well, what do you propose? And I said, well, why don't we time align everything at front of house? Right? So we just...
you're slicing it down the middle, basically.
It'll be late on stage. Who cares about the front row? They're watching you.
Yeah.
Right? So the first bunch of seats, it'll feel late. But at front of house, right on the money.
Yeah.
And then in the back, early.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and he was so happy. He loved it. Everybody, all the VIPs are always at front of house, right?
Yeah.
So everything was timed perfectly right there.
Yeah.
And then we get to the stadium tour, push the delay even more, because we're 175 feet from the stage now.
Jesus.
120 or 110. The funny part was when I don't know if I said that in the previous podcast, so I apologize if it's a rehash.
It's all good.
Wembley Stadium. 2007. George is the first artist to open the brand new Wembley Stadium. 90,000 people, 2 nights. First night, the second half of the show will be broadcast live on ITV4. So I walk over to the sound guy and I ask him, I said, for today's performance, can you eliminate all delays? So he was the one who was setting the delays on the time code, the mix, and the click track. That we could hear the 1, 2, 3, 4 at the beginning of the song. He goes, you sure? You sure you want me to kill them all? I said, yes, I have to be live to the stage because the cameras are going to be capturing the band live. And so the audio and the lighting has to be right on the money. Okay, great. So we start the show, and I'm pushing my in-ears so deep in my ear canals because I'm hearing the late PA and the early mix in my ears.
Yeah.
Right? It was awful. But then I start to look at the crowd on the floor, and everybody's like, because their eyes are seeing that the light show is completely not in time, right? So we make it through that show, but luckily on TV it looked great.
Yeah.
It was on time. The next day I go, Gary, let's put all the delays back in. Okay, great. He puts all the delays back in. And then we do the second performance, and the entire floor of Wembley jumping, dancing.
Oh, really? They were way more into it.
That's when I saw that my theory was,
it matters. Yeah. So some of your live timing, did you pick up from Broderick? Because he's like a master of He
definitely set me straight on early is better than late.
Yeah.
I was lucky because remember when we talked about my early career, the first band ever was a Genesis tribute.
Yeah.
So I sorted out timing
right
there and
then
then
it's true.
when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
And then April Wine was not that easy either.
Yeah.
Triple guitar solos and
they're touring now with I think they have one original member still.
Greenway.
Exactly.
I have to reach out to Brian.
Yeah. I saw one of Miles' last shows. It was in Calgary.
Oh, wow.
Was it last summer? Summer before, I guess. Summer before. And it was one of his last shows. I think he played maybe 10 after that or something, and then he was done, and then he died.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I always remember my time with them. It was really cool. But it definitely set me straight on timing, so that by the time I ended up with JB, he knew I could handle it.
Yeah.
He really did.
Did. I always just thought of John as someone who, like, not everyone gave a shit about timing, but he really did. And I remember I was at upstaging one time, and it must have been rehearsals for Metallica or something. And he was trying out the Hog, maybe even the Hog 1. And he made them bring in an Avo console.
Oh, yeah.
And he was doing like some kind of DMX to analog to DMX thing, because it was too slow. Like the latency on the digital console pissed him off.
Digital means delayed. That was his big line. So what we did on the first tour I did with him, with Metallica Load Tour, I think I explained how we did that. He was on the QM500 Avo Light.
Yeah.
And then what we had was a DMX merger that was able to give him shutter control on my studio colors.
What year was that?
96.
Because that might have been the one that I'm talking about. That might have been the same tour.
Yeah, Prep was in England, though, because we started in Birmingham. So
well, maybe this wasn't Prep. Maybe he was just in Chicago to be looking at the console or something and figuring it all out. But I remember they had to put the Avo console there. I don't remember why. But
yeah, that must have been a little. It could have been after, or
I don't know.
early Prep, because I remember what we did for that tour was crazy, because Obi Lighting sent the entire lighting package to England, and then we had step down transformers to power it up, because the European tour, the way it was scheduled was, if I remember correctly, it was almost 3.5 months in 96. And then they were going to ship everything on the boat back to New York into the trucks in time to cross the country and do the first show in San Jose.
Oh, God.
And so there was no time for an American lighting company to create a new package. So that's why the Obi light system went to Europe, did the whole tour
Wow.
on step-down transformers, came back to the U.S. We took it out of the truck day one in San Jose, and off we went.
Crazy. That's
Without
just
the
madness. Madness.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
That
tell
was
you
fun,
what.
though, because his timing was great for
Yeah.
opening the shutters on the Studio Colors.
So
UM.
good. So good. Yeah. I loved
And his
how
little
he
box,
played the console.
His little box with the 2 buttons for the strobes.
Yeah.
So that
yeah.
and then
That's
they
the
were
other
all
thing.
wired.
Yeah, like he triggered strobes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, on the
he
song
had
one.
well, and the thing is, you're following Lars, so it ain't that easy because he's not your regular drummer.
No.
His timing's special. You know.
I got a chance to see Metallica both nights at SoFi. Was it last year?
Yeah.
Chucky and I went, and I hadn't seen them in 20 years.
Oh,
They're
wow.
In their 60s
I hadn't-
now, and they
I think I'm about the same.
They-
Like I saw it last year in Edmonton.
kicked the shit out of us. I mean, they're still unbelievable.
Yeah,
Still so
really
good.
good. I've not really been a fan of Metallica my whole life, and I loved it. Like I had a great time. They were so powerful, and Pantera opened for them. Talking about powerful, holy shit!
Yeah.
It's just like you get that dun 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 dun, and I'm standing right in front of the subs, going, "What's happening?" Yeah, I feel sick. Yeah. Benoit, I gotta go. And it's really been fun catching up. We need to catch up more often off the air, not just on podcasts,
Yes,
but
that's true.
we should stay in contact because I like talking with you. So
I appreciate it. Same here, Marcel. It's been a crazy time now in the last 5 years with
No
a
kidding.
pandemic and a
I can't even
strike,
explain
you
it.
know.
Like imagine explaining the last 5 years to your kids someday.
stuff.
It's gonna be hard.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Have a good one.
Make the best. Absolutely. And same to you. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
All right. You too.